Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have a new guest, Lynn Russell. She's author of The Wonder of You, What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. Now, we've had, not a few months ago, we had like Robert Kopecki on. He had his How to Get to Heaven Without Dying. We've had a number of shows on past life experiences, but Lynn Russell worked with Dr. Jeffery Long over 2,500 cases of near-death experiences. And I've been reading her book. It's very interesting. I love this topic. This is the ultimate question. What's consciousness? Does it carry on? I believe it does, and I believe there's a lot of evidence in these cases that she studied that show that. So we're going to talk about that tonight, and I'd love for you to call in later in the show. If you've had a near-death experience, please share it. I'd love to hear that tonight. Even if you called and told it before in the past, you can call again, share it with Lynn, and get her perspective on that. We got a lot of weird to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird. I had so much, I was trying to decide what I was going to cover tonight, but we got a lot of weird to get to on that. So let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight, our guest is Lynn Russell. She will join us after the first commercial break, after our World Wide Web of Weird news segment. And I want to say, does everybody like my nice haircut here? I broke down and let my wife cut my hair, and she did an amazing job. Almost thought I was going to have to wear a hat tonight. I was not afraid, but she did awesome. I'm like, you're my new stylist. She did great. I mean, for her first time cutting hair, I mean, it was really awesome. I was scared. So thank you, honey, for the nice haircut, because I was starting to look like Bigfoot. So, somebody who doesn't look like Bigfoot, my beautiful co-host, is Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you.
Excited to have this guest on, and we were telling the guest before, you and Rob both had near-death experiences, so love for you guys to chime in tonight and get her perspective on it as well. I share the same stories over and over and again. It's all right. I have new listeners that never heard your experience before, so please share your stories again tonight. We're talking about near-death experiences. Rob, as I mentioned, from St. Augustine, Florida, is with us as well. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Doing fabuloso.
Ready to get into weird? Because I got some weird. We got one UFO thing. I got 4 videos for one story. I don't have really even an article to write, but there's something going on in Serbia. We'll get to that. But there's a lot of weird. So you can say, Rob?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, we might as well get it right out of the way. Everybody's losing their mind, especially in the media. And people that have never been into UFOs are suddenly losing their minds because the Pentagon just decided to classify the UFO videos we've known about for almost 2 years now. Seriously. But now the Pentagon's officially recognized these videos, and I don't know, people are losing their minds on it. I don't know. For those listening on our Paranormal Radio Network, we are a webcast where you can watch videos and see photos. I will narrate as best as possible. We do have some interesting UFO stuff to get to tonight. Speaking of the UFO thing, well, we're going to first start out with this one. That's the elephant in the room. Is Phone Explain Mysteries has the shortest, nice articles for me to read here. Pentagon declassifies U.S. Navy pilot videos. The clips, which have been circulating for years, were filmed by pilots pursuing a UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomenon. Objects that may have been speculated could be extraterrestrial in origin. These include footage recorded by pilots from the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group who encountered a fast-moving unidentified flying object 100 miles off of San Diego during a training exercise back in 2004. The clips were previously leaked and published to the New York Times and Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. An official statement regarding the release of these clips read, "The Department of Defense has authorized the release of 3 unclassified Navy videos, one taken in November 2004, and the other 2 in January of 2015, which have been circulating in the public domain after unauthorized releases in 2007, 2017. Excuse me. Wow. The U.S. Navy previously acknowledged that these videos circulating in the public domain were indeed Navy videos. After a thorough review, the department has determined that the authorized release of these unclassified videos does not reveal any sensitive capabilities or systems and does not impinge on any subsequent investigations of military airspace incursions by unidentified aerial phenomenon. The DoD is releasing the videos in order to clear up any misconceptions by the public on whether or not the footage has been circulating was real or whether or not there's more to the videos. The aerial phenomenon observed is in the videos remains characterized as unidentified." So they basically are like, yeah, we admit they're real, but we're not going to say what they are. We don't know. They're unidentified. That's why they're called UFOs.
Yeah.
But, you think that's it. That's all they got to say on it. You think that'd be a bit of a national concern, security concern, these things flying, outmaneuvering our jets at every angle and, defying physics. They could be just a little bit on the radar of the military, maybe.
Like that meme that's going around that says, 2020 has been one of the, they just came out and said aliens exist and nobody cares.
And nobody cares. It's so true, though. It's like, okay, nobody cares. Yeah, because we already had the videos. That's the thing, we've already seen them. And I remember when one of the Tom DeLonge came out, I'm like, I saw this back in the day when they were making a big deal of it when Tom DeLonge first released. I'm like, okay, well, I know about these videos. It's a big thing when your government finally admits these are real military videos. I had my doubts on them. I'll admit it. I've said on the show, the audio in it, when you hear the pilots talking, I didn't know they talked like that.
Frat boys.
Right. I guess so. Yeah, it just set me off. Well, with us now, our government admitting that this is real in a way, as pathetically as they can admit it, we got some news from Japan. This is another Unexplained Mysteries article. Japan, this is Article 2. Japan set to draw up plans for UFO encounters. 2 years ago, the Japanese government spoke out on the topic of UFOs by stating that no confirmation has been made of their existence. During a news conference on April 28th, however, Defense Minister Taro Kono indicated that the subject hadn't been forgotten about when he suggested that he wanted Japan's own self-defense force to come up with a plan of action for dealing with any future encounters with such objects. "We would like to establish procedures in the event an encounter is made with a UFO," he said. "If a video can be taken of a UFO encounter and if a report is possible, then a report will be made. Discussions will be held with the Air SDF about just what can be done." What can be done? Or are we going to shoot at them? Kono's comments followed on from the U.S. government's recent release of 3 declassified clips showing unidentified objects being pursued by U.S. Navy pilots. So the other countries are taking notice. Once the Pentagon says this is real, other countries are like, well, maybe we need a plan. They've already been encountering it. Now they're just like, well, if the U.S. has admitted it, maybe we can admit it too. Yeah. This happened on April 28th. This came out with the defense minister. Another thing, I don't have an article for this. This is Article 3. We're gonna get to that now, Rob. There's 4 videos here. I actually don't have an article. All I know is from Belgrade, Serbia, on April 28th. A bunch of people there spotted this, and I have these 4 videos that I found on YouTube, and I think there's more of people who witnessed the same thing. You'll see it's the same thing. One video is a little different because it has like something falling off. Go ahead and start the videos, Rob, if you can.
All right, I got it. This is the one I had to download.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, this is the one that's got the thing that like drips off of it. It's weird. I don't know if he's saying what I think he's saying. This is supposed to be in Serbia, but the other video I have a kid saying, "What the F?" And I had to bleep that out. But I'm not sure if that's what this guy was saying. I don't know if he's calling the aliens a-holes. I want to think it's Serbian. No, maybe.
I saw these aliens. I was yelling, "Hey!"
All right, go to the next video because we don't want to run out of time. You pick any one of them. I have them like in a number order, but it doesn't matter. That one's weird because there's something like dripping off of that. That first one makes me think that it could be a flare with the way like it's dripping like from a flare and then it just goes out. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, here's the other one. We can make that one bigger though. You hear this music and stuff, people chanting and stuff. There's another video where they're doing this in another part of the city. I don't know. You can play music to it while they're on lockdown to the UFOs. All right. And then should be yeah. This is the one I had to bleep the kid going, "What the you know what?" I bleeped him now.
Okay, cool.
Play that. I bleeped him. Oh no, that's not this video. This is a different one. This has got weird music in the background.
Не видишь, что там пусто? Не стало.
Ты снимала?
Да.
Ебать.
Занзимать.
Снимала?
Yeah, it was gone. All right, go ahead, go to the other video. We got one more. This will probably be the Beograd, Serbia. This one said. I saw other ones said Belgrade.
What?
Oh my god! What? Tata!
That's pretty weird.
Tata!
Yeah, this one they zoom in on it quite a bit. But
Снимай.
I love this kid's excitement. I don't know if you can make it bigger.
The shape of it.
Well, it could be the way the light is when it's getting as fast as far as it can zoom in. I don't know. It seems pretty bright.
Oh my god!
I love this kid though. Oh my god! What the?
Ali vidiš ovo? What the? Stavi na internet, tata.
Well, he says it like 6 times or 8 times. I had to edit it out.
Otišlo, tata. Vidi kako brzo.
It's like, what is that?
Kako nisam brže vidio,
Otišlo, mama.
Pretty good.
ja
Not
ti
this
kažem da
video,
ne
too.
kameru ti spraviš.
Yeah,
Oh my god!
right there is pretty trippy.
And the way it's, I know they're moving the camera around, but you can, with the bushes, still kind of see.
Yeah,
Tata.
looks
Yeah.
pretty bright.
Yeah.
Way bright. And those aren't just like tail lights.
Yeah, I don't know.
Tata.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. Pretty weird.
And
shit.
right there in the back.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I caught on to this because I just happened to find the one video. I'm like, okay, if this guy did this in Serbia on the 28th, let's check all videos, and I found 3 more. So I'm like, okay, there might be more. If I find more videos before next week's show, I'll get them ready and get them up there. I don't know. There could be more. So, or there could be an
Yeah.
explanation out from it. I don't know, but I didn't have any article for it. All right. So this next one is actually footage that came from 2011 that I didn't know about. Now everybody's known about my shadow person experience. And at one point I called it a hat man experience. Now mine didn't look totally like this. This one looks like a Men in Black kind of fedora hat. Like mine was like a taller hat. But this came from St. Louis. What was the place that they did this from? Let's read the article. We got a curious piece of footage filmed at a notoriously haunted location in St. Louis appears to offer a glimpse of the infamous shadowy entity known as the Hat Man. But not everyone is convinced that the video features a genuine supernatural being. The scene in question was reportedly filmed back in 2011 11 at Limp Mansion and was posted on Reddit last week by a user claiming that it had been recorded by their friend during a ghost hunt. In the video, the camera pans around the room and a passage window with daylight streaming through it. As the footage sweeps around again, an eerie-looking shadow, what appears to be an individual wearing an old-fashioned hat, can be briefly be seen. When the spot comes into view again, the spooky figure seemingly vanished. All right, go ahead and play it. You're definitely going to enlarge it. Oh, turn down the no audio though. Mute it. Yeah, so that's Limp Mansion. So here it is. It's definitely crappy footage. She's going to pan back, and you're going to see it real quick. Right there. So you can find it. Hidden Underbelly 2.0 is where I found this. But and there was an article on Coast to Coast about it. But I found it. I mean, people talk about the hat, man. You don't see too many videos of it. I don't know. It's not like what I saw, but I don't know. It looks like somebody's there. I don't know if it's an illusion or not. There's going to be a zoom in here coming up of it.
Yeah, that was pretty.
All right, when it comes back, you'll see it in a slowdown. I think they do. Yes, it's slowed down. You see it. Almost like he's in the light, like about ready to disappear.
Yeah, definitely looks like shoulders and a face and a hat.
Yeah, kind of like the fedora hat, like a Man in Black fedora hat thing. You see like the shoulders, but it's like it's disappearing. I mean, I see shadow, it could be a ghost that wore a fedora. I don't know if it's a shadow person, but it Limp Mansion, that's had a notoriously haunted place. Be interesting to know more of the history of the Limp Mansion. If anybody's seen a fedora hatted ghost there before.
Yeah.
It could almost be a cowboy hat.
Yeah. Or like one of them.
Almost looks like you see two images of it, like it's reflecting again to the right. I don't know. It's weird. All right, but we'll move on before we run out of time. All right, let's move on. This next one is haunted house for free. Free haunted house available. This is from the Mirror. Free haunted house available in Louisiana. After reported attempts to sell the residence proved futile, the owners of a reportedly haunted house in Louisiana is now giving the home away for free. Realtor Sylvia McLean, who took to Facebook earlier this year with an unbelievable offer on this 2-story, 4-bedroom home in the community of Old Yanisville. Although her post did not mention the site's spooky reputation, people responded to the announcement, reportedly revealed that the house is seemingly home to the ghost of an old woman who frankly makes her presence felt. Specifically, Don Violet D. Collet, or Colette, I don't know how you say her name, explained that she used to live in the home and believes that the spirit might be that of her great-grandmother, Adele. She's not menacing at all, her relative wrote, revealing that the woman was a mere 4'9" and weighed about 100 pounds. According to Dawn, her great-grandmother had a peculiar habit of always digging in the pots, like when you have something on the stove and someone goes and looks in the pot and it stirs it around. Well, I mean, that's great. She's helping in the kitchen, right? Yeah. And following her passing, the woman's spirit seemingly continued the practice, as you used to hear her all the time jangling the pots when we had something on the stove. You could hear somebody picking up the lid, but there was nobody in the kitchen. Meanwhile, other residents of the community chimed in on Facebook posts with their own spooky stories from staying in a home, with one person claiming, I experienced 3 things there that could not be explained, and my friend that lived there had more than that. While prospective homeowners with an appreciation for the paranormal may think that the prospect of getting a haunted house for free is quite the steal, the deal comes with something of a catch. That's because the owners are only giving away the residence itself, and interest parties will have to physically move the building off the property. The entire process of relocating the residence and subsequently refurbishing the site is estimated to cost approximately $80,000. So you're still buying a home because you're going to move it and get it reset back up. And that's why it's free. But you might get a ghost with it that'll help you in the
interesting. If it's like a residual haunting, I wonder if the house is actually physically moved to a new location. If it's a residual haunting, if it'll still be there,
or will it be with a new house built there?
Yeah,
that
exactly. The house or the land.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to get a follow-up to know once they moved it and they built a new house there. It'd be an interesting study. What happens in either one of the homes? Is it the home? Is it the land?
Both?
And what if it happens both?
Yeah, what if the new home has something because of the land, and then there's still an attachment in the old home that got moved?
And now it's because in a new place.
Right. A little confused ghost.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the next one because we're running out of time here. This one, Unexplained Mysteries. Plague Doctor terrifies residents of Hellisden. Keeping yourself protected from the airborne pathogen during the coronavirus pandemic is certainly an important consideration when venturing outside. However, one person in the town of Hellisden, England, has taken things a little bit too far by opting for a full 17th century plague doctor's costume. The eerie attire, which consists of black robes, a black hat, and a pointed beak-like face mask filled with aromatic items, was widely used by doctors to treat infected patients during the bubonic plague, as it was thought to act as a filter against the putrid air responsible for causing the disease. The costume came to be feared during outbreaks and was perceived as a sign of imminent deaths. As such, no surprise that people might object to somebody wearing it during this current crisis. The mysterious plague doctor, who has been seen several times for the last 2 weeks, is now being sought by the local police, who would like to offer a word of advice regarding his attire. Officers were, however, keen to emphasize that no crime had been committed. It's quite a smart-looking costume, said historian Danny Buck, University East Anglia. You know what this made me think of, though? You remember a couple years ago or more that video, and I know we played it on here, where they had like the message, like the guy was like dressed like a plague doctor and he had this hidden message in it and everybody's trying to figure it out. And I've been thinking about that one a lot lately with everything that's gone down with coronavirus. This made me think of it again. Like, was that some kind of warning for what we're going on now? I'm interested to know. Research that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the last one. This last one's kind of coronavirus related too, not paranormal, but I find it completely terrifying. The article, I forgot, I don't have the website up here, but I just took out some excerpts from it because there's so much to it. I've always been interested in serial killers, but I don't want them out of my street. I've been fascinated by how humans can be evil. Well, the man now known as the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, was sent to prison for more than 500 years sentence. He was convicted of 49 murders of prostitutes, girls on the streets, and vulnerable runaways, but he was suspected of committing 71 murders in 1970, 80s, and 90s. He would take girls, do horrible things for him. We're not going to get into all the details. Skip that part. It's awful. He's a crazy murderer. I mean, we're talking like, he probably killed 70, 80 people. He was arrested in the 80s, but let go for lack of evidence. A task force was formed to track down the serial killer. In 2001, decades and multiple victims later, Gary Ridgway was busted again and confessed to 71 murders. He was spared the death penalty, basically, where he was at. I'm trying to get through this article because we're going to run out of time. There's a lot to this. The thing is, with the COVID-19 that you've been hearing on the news, they're letting people out of prison. Well, there was a panel to decide, because there's a legal activist group, Columbia Legal Services, began agitating for inmates over 50 years old to be set free to save them from the virus. Ridgway is 71. Prosecutors argued in court that the petitioners demand that two-thirds of the prison's population be released in the community, a number which includes serial killers and capital murderers. Among the killers to possibly be released were the Green River Killer and Isaac Zamora, a multiple murderer who went on a shooting rampage and killed 5 people. On Thursday, the Washington State Supreme Court ruled that those really bad people, including the Green River Killer, would face coronavirus locked up, and everyone else would be let out. They're going to let other people out with lesser offenses, but they're not going to let them out. But you know what the vote was? 5-4. 4 people, 4 judges voted knowingly that they could be letting out this guy that killed 71 people.
Why? What possible good reason could you have?
Yeah. Is it because they think he's 71 years old? He's not going to be up to it? Don't underestimate a 71-year-old crazy serial killer. I'm just saying. There were serial killers that functioned up into their 70s still killing people.
Oh, yeah. And he was put away for 500 years or what was it?
Yeah.
500-year sentence, life sentence. Yeah. And what does it say to the families of these murdered victims, that you're going to just let this guy? I don't care if he gets COVID-19. I don't have any sympathy. I don't care if he gets it. That's your luck, buddy. These guys child molesters don't get out. Rapists, murderers, serial killers don't get out. People who are in there for drug offenses, let them out.
Yeah.
Let them out. That, I get that. I'm not worried about them. Not worried about them.
Like some blue collar crimes or some.
Well, it's like they're trying to create the purge or something here. I know, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, what the heck?
People
I remember.
Minds.
Well, there's a great. I mean, I get it. There's everybody's seen The Stand or read the book. There's a character in that who's a prisoner who did really horrible things, and he ends up in the prison like everybody else is dead, but he survives. But he's stuck in the prison cell, and he's forced to eat a rat. I I don't care if that happened to them, if everything
Yeah.
went down. I don't care if they get COVID-19. He's a serial killer. He killed 71 people. That'd be. I hope. I don't hope he gets it. I'll tell you that. I don't want him to get it. I want him to rot in jail for as long as possible. I'm not a big death sentence person. I'm not saying I'm not saying I want him to get COVID-19, but I don't care. He can stay in jail. I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
four judges decided they were going to vote to say, yeah, this guy and other serial killers and murderers and rapists could get out.
The world it is definitely a mad, mad world.
Lost their mind. People are lost their mind. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Our guest tonight is Lynn Russell. She's the author of The Wonder of You, What Near-Death Experiences Tells You About Yourself. I've never had a near-death experience. It's something that's fascinated me, though, is the afterlife. All my favorite movies are about the afterlife, Beetlejuice, What Dreams May Come. I'm watching a new show called Upload. I don't know if everybody's seen it on Prime, where they make a virtual afterlife for people. Something I've thought about as a possibility happening in the human race, good or really bad. I don't know. Maybe we'll get into that. I'm sure our guest probably hasn't seen it, but we'll talk about that. I'll bring it up to her because this show's blowing my mind. Imagine, would you choose a virtual afterlife? Or would you just say, no, I want to see the real afterlife? That's a good question. All right, guys, we're going to go to our break. We'll open up the phone lines after the second commercial break. We'll give out those numbers, but we will be right back.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Bring life to the dead. 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 Enter the occult world of necromancy. You were brought here for one purpose: necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please,
And death to the living. Necromancy, starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted. Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Do you like rock and roll? Do you enjoy a good story? Wish You Were Here, A Rock Fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It will not only entertain you, but intrigue you. What is it about? Well, Thomas is searching for his bandmate and friend in heaven, and in spirit has helped pen this story. He meets an old friend and famous new ones on his afterlife voyage. Midwest Book Review said, Wish You Were Here, A Rock Fantasy, is a book inspired by Badfinger. It's a quirky story by Joyce S. Isaacson and is unique, original, and deftly crafted metaphysical novel that showcases the author's genuine flair for character and narrative-driven entertainment that is simply riveting from first page to last. Wish You Were Here, A Rock Fantasy is now available on PennantPublication.com, Amazon.com in paperback and hardcover, and also on Kindle Unlimited. So check it out now. Wish You Were Here, A Rock Fantasy.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Lynn Russell. She's the author of The Wonder of You, What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. For most of her life, Lynn Russell has been a student and experiencer of a variety of spiritual phenomena. And for 28 years, Lynn was a professional family counselor and loved every minute of it. But when Dr. Jeffery Long of NDERF.org asked for her help in researching his vast online database of NDE testimonies, she didn't hesitate to accept the challenge on the spot. From her research of over 2,500 NDEs, Lynn discovered profound and consistent insights about life and what happens afterwards. Through divine inspiration, she published her findings in a book, The Wonder of You, What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. Her mission is to share these profound insights backed up with scientific evidence to give readers a greater understanding of their own spiritual journey. Her book is filled with thought-provoking answers to humanity's ongoing quest to better understand the true nature of our existence and to gain a better perspective of the many paths we travel as an individual. I've always been fascinated by this subject of near-death, of course, because it deals with the prime. Why are we here? Who are we? You know, if there's one unified field paranormal theory I talk about, it has to do, we would tie everything together, is what happens after we die. It's the big question all of us should be asking. I know a lot of people don't, but all of us should be asking, what happens after we die? I think a lot of people fear it. I don't know. I do have a little fear of death, but the question is, what is death? What happens? That unknown is what makes that fear. I question everything as a Gnostic, but I do believe in the afterlife. I've seen enough evidence, and I know my listeners and viewers have had some of you out there have had near-death experience. Later tonight, please call in and share your experiences. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. Are you there with me, Lynn?
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I gave a little bit of a bio introduction about you there. I think the first question is what got you so fascinated with human consciousness and life after death and these big questions?
Yes, it was when I was a child, my grandfather died, and his death made me realize that I would die. And I was around 8 or 9, and the mere thought that I was going to die terrified me. And so I stewed over that for a while, and then I went to my mother to ask her what happens after death. Well, she was an atheist. So she said, you just die, you disappear. You just stop being. And that was not the answer I wanted.
I don't think that's the answer anybody wants to hear. All respect to your mother as an atheist, but that's not the answer you want to hear as a child or even as an adult at all.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And so that's what got my curiosity going. And I had friends that went to church, and we didn't go to church, but I had friends who did. And so I started to explore, and I explored all my life. I just never stopped. I researched all the history of different religions and what they believed and why did they believe it. And that just grew and grew and grew. So that when Moody's book came out, it was almost like, wow, that's fantastic. But, and then after Moody's book in 1975, I started reading about death experiences, and that's when I got involved with Dr. Long.
Yeah,
so big
name in that field.
Retired, yeah,
it's a big name. It's a big name in the field of near-death experiences, Dr. Jeffery Long.
Yeah,
and said you got to go through his database of over 2,500 cases.
Yes. And so what happened was the people would send their experiences into NDERF, and then I would tear them apart. How many people did this? They saw a light, and how many people went through a tunnel, and how many people this. So I tore the experiences apart and then put them back together again. And learned so much.
That I bet that 2,500. I mean, yeah, there's 7 billion people on the planet and all that, but 2,500 is a lot of cases to go through, a lot of different stories, a lot of people's experiences. I've been reading them in your book, which I love. These stories that I'm reading in your book of people's near-death experiences, and you said you're trying to find the correlations. How many had a tunnel, how many had that. That's what I find so fascinating, is that it seems like everybody has their own kind of unique experience.
Yes. No two death experiences are alike. And that's because we take a role in the experience that we have. We directly take a direct role in that experience. So that's why it's so different. It's as individual as we are human.
Well, one of my I mentioned at the beginning of the show, one of the reasons I love this topic is like all my favorite movies for some reason have to do with the afterlife. Like a lot of my top favorite movies. And What Dreams May Come is up there as one of them. And what I loved about the concept of that movie, and I know it was a book originally, was the fact that people created their own experience when they went to the other side. They painted their own picture was kind of the theme of it. Yes,
that's very true. So it's very difficult to separate when a person has a death experience. They have to understand that the guy beside them didn't have the same experience, even though that's what they had. But that's okay. That's it. Certainly that there are a lot of similarities too.
For you, I mean, getting to I found interesting in your book was your kind of spiritual experiences before you got involved with Dr. Jeffery Long. You're spiritually. I mean, I kind of find like a little bit of a familiarity to the way you talk about how you were raised, because that's kind of how I was raised. Now, my mom's now a Buddhist, but back in the day, I mean, her and my dad, who's into science, quantum physics, are like, we don't know. I grew up with no religion. I grew up with discover for yourself, no dogmas, And so I got very interested in other religions and Christianity and Buddhism, and I've always been fascinated by it. And do you think you would have had the same fascination if it wasn't for your parents' openness?
I think so. I think that I was lucky to have the parents that I had that weren't interested in religion and were open-minded about it. So I could have great discussions with my mother.
Right.
She didn't believe any of it, but that's okay.
But she was open-minded enough to talk to you about it, She had no dogmas.
Exactly.
Had no dogmas. That's what I truly appreciate. And my mom's probably in the chat room right now. But that's what I truly appreciated about my childhood and growing up with the parents I had, was that I didn't grow up in a house with dogmas. I didn't grow up in a house with had any set idea what the afterlife was. Everything was up for question. And and that's how it is in our house. My kids are constantly questioning everything. You talk about you were 8 years old, you said, when you first really thought, I see that. I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I don't think my 4-year-old gets the concept of death totally, but he does. But my 8-year-old, I've seen that develop in him, an understanding concept of it. And it's terrifying as a child. If you realize how much it terrified me as a child, realizing it. In kindergarten, I guess my first real acceptance of death is kindergarten. A classmate of mine and somebody who I played with, she got killed in a car accident. That's when first time I really realized when you're dead, you're dead, but I saw her ghost at one point. I had a little encounter with her. So that right there opened up my mind that there's something else. There's so many things in my life that showed me that there's another side. So, I really, that's why I enjoy your book. I kind of find like a kindred spirit with you. You kind of grew up like I did, with an open mind and an idea for the wondrous. But you had something in your book you talk about kind of having like an awakening moment.
Yes. It was three experiences that all joined together later on. But at the time that I had the experiences, I didn't know they were going to join. I didn't know there was going to be more. The first experience, I was washing dishes at the kitchen sink, and above the sink was a window, and I was looking at the apple tree out in the backyard. And all of a sudden, I was just thinking about dishes or something. I don't know what. I became that tree. I was that tree. There was literally no difference. The tree was me. I was the tree. I was the bird in the tree. I was the bug the bird was going to eat. I was grass. I was every kind of life form that I could think of. I became it, and it became me. And it was just a beautiful experience. And in my reading, I had heard about this kind of experience before, cosmic consciousness. And so I thought, oh, that's good, and left it at that. And then a few days later, I don't know, 3-4 days later, I'm wiping fingerprints off the hall walls. And the kids, by the way, I had 3 children, and the 2 older ones were off at school, and the younger one was down for an afternoon nap. So the house was always quiet during these experiences. Anyway, I'm wiping these fingerprints off the wall, and all of a sudden, I'm not seeing the wall. I'm seeing an atom with the nuclei in the middle, and the electrons going around. And that expanded to our solar system with the sun and the planets going around, and that expanded to the galaxy with the core of the galaxy that we now know is a black hole, but and it spinning around, and it just went from the micro to the macro universe. And during this whole thing that I'm seeing, I'm getting this understanding that this didn't just happen out of the blue, that there was order and planning and an intelligence behind it all. And then I got a message, and the message was so strong that it knocked me over almost. It was so strong that it was like you know your own name, and you can't deny that that's your name.
This is
and
instant knowing.
This message said, yeah, this deep knowing, and the message said, your being is intricately connected with the operation of the universe. And I thought, how can that happen? Actually, I didn't like that. I did not like it. I didn't want to hear that kind of stuff because it made me feel that I was responsible somehow for the universe. And I that was too much. I couldn't take that. So that was the second experience. And then the third experience, again, that afternoon, the house is quiet. And this time I'm in my living room, picking up toys, by the way. Children housework.
I know that feeling.
And so I'm picking up toys, and all of a sudden there's this presence in the room with me. And I couldn't see a thing. All I saw was my room. But I could feel this presence so strongly that there was no question that I knew something was there. And then it was just this huge amount of love that was wrapped around me like this giant blanket of love. And then I felt like I was connected to this something that wherever it was. And somehow I was connected like an umbilical cord almost. And then I heard words, and the words, it were clearly in my right ear, and it said, "This is where you came from, and this is where you will return." And that was the end of it. It faded away and it was gone. But after that, I walked on air for about 3 months. Nothing bothered me. The kids were fine. And then after that, I used to be a terrible nail biter. I bit as far down as I could possibly go, and I do the cuticles after that. And it was just horrible. And after my experience, I looked down one day and I had nails. I had stopped biting. I didn't even know it.
I definitely in your book when you talk about you were in that bliss state, you don't even hear your kids, their normal like annoying chatter.
Yeah.
I was like, I relate to that. I need that bliss state after being in lockdown with a 4-year-old and 8-year-old. Tell me how to get to that bliss state.
Yeah.
The closest thing I really related to that a little bit too, because a weird experience I had out of the blue was right before I married my wife. Is I saw a translucent image of a boy who I believe is my 4-year-old son now, Liam, but way before he was born. And he was older, but it was the feeling I had during that it was an instant knowing that I knew him and of love, just this intense connected love feeling. And it was middle of the day, completely awake, not high, not doing any drugs or not drunk or anything, just out of the blue. And it just happened like that. Why then, there, how, I don't know. But I had that experience. And it's just so weird. You're like, am I losing my mind?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that is what you wonder about. I had another experience that I didn't put in the book that your audience might be interested in. I was in my office. Now, when I had the first experience that I just talked about, I had gone back to school to take social work. So now I'm graduated and I'm a family counselor. And I'm in my office and I'm writing a report on one of my families. And all of a sudden I hear this voice that says, "I want to use you."
Ooh.
I jumped up, looked around to make sure there was nobody there, but I knew where this voice had come from. It was obvious that it wasn't somebody, some person. Anyway, but I really, really did not want, in no bloody way, get this away from me.
Right.
I don't want anything to do with it. It was just terrifying. That what would you want me for? And that's what I ran around asking. What do you want? And I would go to psychics and people, but I never got an answer what it was that I was supposed to do, so
Maybe
that I could decide whether I was going to do it or not.
Maybe, Lynn, you're already doing it because this is, I want to use you.
Yeah,
it makes you want to know that you're doing right now. What it doesn't have to tell you what it's for. You're doing it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. After that, I didn't hear the voice for a long, long, long time. It was about 4 years later. And this voice, I'm in the restaurant with my daughter, the one that was afternoon nap. Well, now she's a teenager. She's about 14. And I'm in the restaurant with her. And all of a sudden I hear this voice again that says, "I still want to use you, you know."
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so I said, okay, fine. And that was the end of it.
And this is before you got into near-death experiences?
Yeah, after that, yeah.
See,
very soon after that, actually.
See, you might be doing its bidding, whatever it is, but it might be good. You feel like these are, these experiences could be like guardian angels that are directing you or showing you?
Yeah. Who knows, right?
Right.
For a long time, I thought it was just my own mind.
That's the thing. When you have it, it's you question your sanity. Like, why did I experience any of that? It's Why would my mind make that
Oh,
up?
I made it up. Yeah. I just discarded it.
Well, you might not want to.
So I don't think I have much choice now.
So when Dr. Jeffery Long got you in on this project, I mean, how did this start for you? What did what was it like going through these cases?
Oh, well, when I first started, I was really more interested in what happened. What did these people experience? Because I'd already read several near-death experiences, but I still wanted to know more. But after a few hundred, I had a pretty good idea of what happened. But what I did start to see was deeper messages, deep spiritual messages coming back. And that was what really fascinated me. That just blew me away. And so that's what my book is about, the deep messages. What happens? Like, what is this all about? What is life all about? Why are we here?
Well, that is the big question. It seems like with the people that have the near death experience, they get a little peek behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz. They get a little peek beyond the veil of what's the mechanism behind everything. All the accounts I've read, they're all there. They're all different, but the one thing it feels like they're getting some kind of peek of the mechanism of how the universe works. It seems like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, there are definitely things, good messages that they get. For example, they all feel this overwhelming love, and they all feel a connection to everything. Like I did with the tree. Well, that turns out to be connected with even the universe. There's just nothing that they're not connected with. And that's very deep.
Right. But is that the love feel, though, is just that connection with everything, like this instant oneness, kind of like what they talk about with Nirvana and Buddhism, is just knowing you're connected to everything?
Yes, that's exactly. And it just blows them away. And very many people, when they come back, become or lean towards Buddhism because it speaks to the same kind of thinking.
I can see that. What is some of the thinking, though, that you think that they really recognize in Buddhism that after they have this experience that lead them to it? What are some of the elements?
Well,
besides the connectedness.
Well, as far as the connectedness goes, we're talking about it a lot these days, and it's wonderful. That's great. It's that oneness feeling, that knowing that everything is connected. And we hear this kind of statement over and over and over. I don't think we've got it deep enough. I don't think that we have really get it yet, but it's coming. It's coming.
If we got it, there wouldn't if we got it, there wouldn't be wars. There wouldn't be, all the issues we had. If people totally knew or had the idea down in their heart that if I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. I'm hurting a part of myself, that we're all connected, one being in a way.
Yes. And we come here with amnesia about our reality.
Right.
And so that we can have a separate experience, an experience of separation. And so we come here with an amnesia, but we marry this life. When we get so connected to it, it's like we go to a strange land and then we've been there so long, we feel like we belong there, and that's where our home is. And so when we leave this existence and die, we have a very hard time connecting back to that other side. No, I mean, people don't want to leave when they have an experience. They always want to stay.
That seems to be very common too. These experiences that people have some relative or somebody telling them to go. You got to go back. And like, no, I don't want to leave this. This is good. I like this all connected, loving feeling. It seems like people have to be pushed back to go back most of the time.
Yeah. Some people do. That's true. They will absolutely get into a temper and scream and holler not to go back. But they get pushed back anyway because they're not ready yet. They haven't done whatever. They haven't completed what they've gone to do.
Well, I'd like to get into, let's just start out with kind of the the different experiences in that. But what to you counts as, because you talk about this quite a bit in your book, as a near-death experience?
What do I consider to be
a near-death experience? The qualifications for one, because you talk about the difference between an OBE and an NDE, and what qualifies as a near-death experience too.
Sure. Okay. Well, a near-death experience in my eyes isn't just leaving your body and watching the operation in an operation room. To me, that is an out-of-body experience. And as long as they stay in this existence at the earth level, but when they leave here, when they go through a tunnel or they do whatever different ways of getting to the other side, but when they go to the other side and they actually connect with the light or not, they can see their loved ones and they see their guides and they have a death experience, then to me that's a death experience. That's a near-death experience. So that, and near-death, I hate that phrase. I don't like near. I would like to be able to eliminate near, because it disqualifies the experience and makes people feel like it wasn't real, you know.
Because people are adamant, it's like, no, I was dead. I was dead, you know, heart, no brain function, dead. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And so it is. Their brain stops. Their organs are not working, you know, and it's like there's nothing happening. The body is done. And so very often people will be sent to the morgue and wake up hours later.
You have stories in your book. I mean, you talk about some of them I'm familiar with too, where people, I mean, most of your death experiences seem like they're dead for 4 or 5 minutes, you know. And we'll get into a second about how much stuff can happen in just those 4 or 5 minutes for people, which is, you know, when we talk about time on the other side. But some of these people were like setting in rigor mortis, like 13 hours later to, I swear, you had one in there was like 3 days later or something like that. Like a crazy amount of time where they should be brain dead. They shouldn't be coming back from that, and they've come back.
That's right. Yeah, well, that's George. George is one of the ones that goes 3 days.
Yeah.
Like Rodney Natus, I think it is, something like that. He's a Russian man who came to the United States and became a Baptist minister, believe it or not. And he was an atheist. And when he found himself out of his body, he was shocked. He was like, "What? I'm still alive?" And so that was the 3 days. But the problem with his experience is there's no proof, because it happened in Russia, and so. But the one that does have proof, is the one of a sailor who stepped on a poisoned coral, and he died. But for the sailors with him, he was in the Navy, and so the guys with him got him onto the boat. Or ship, I should say. And the doctor hooked them up with an EEG, on the brain.
Yeah.
And so there was nothing. That's how he knew that he was gone, because it was just flat. So anyway, for some reason, and I don't understand this part, but for some reason, the doctor, maybe there was some reason he had to leave fast. Anyway, he left the room and he left the EEG machine running. And 29 hours later, the fellow woke up and the machine was still running.
So they recorded it. They literally recorded his brain coming back online.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 29 hours. Yeah. And he's on NDERF.
And logically, I mean, if he had no brain scan and he was getting oxygen, he's not breathing, his brain should be dead. It shouldn't be able to just jump back in 29 hours later. I mean, rigor mortis sets in after 12 hours. He should be, that had been a rude awakening for him to come back into his body too, right?
Well, his body would have gotten past the rigor mortis now. So, because once the rigor mortis sets in, and then it's there for a few hours, and then it starts to let go. So he would be loose again by the time he woke up. And so he sat up wondering what's going on.
What was his experience on the other side? Do you remember?
I can't remember, honestly.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, if you want to find them, go to NDERF and then look for a sailor and look for poison coral. That'll do it. You'll find them in the search engine.
It sounds familiar. The story sounded familiar to me. I might have heard of it before too, but it's really interesting. You know, some of these ones where they're just, you know, their corpses, man, they are dead, and they should not be getting back up. Is incredible, incredible. Yeah, and the guy, you know, like you said, with ones like the one in Russia, you know, there's no proof. We don't know if that's what they really experienced or not.
That's right.
You know, but
it,
you know, I mean, what the Bible talks about with Lazarus rising, you know, and Jesus rising, you know, it makes you wonder what the limits of or the human, you know, body. You wonder, you know, what took them so long to get back in their body. Was it them arguing like, I don't want to go back? They're fighting not to go back, and somebody shoved them back in. You know, that's why I was curious.
Well, you know, actually, there's you know, the long ones. Sometimes it's just sort of floating around and looking at things and talking to people, and you know, like they don't get into something really deep, and yet other ones will get very deep. So who knows?
Yeah,
like for another thing. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say another thing is that there's no guarantee that because a person is a specific religion that they will have an NDE that fits that religion. They're, you know, it's quite different.
It's like you kind of say this in your book, like it's partly our expectations, but partly something else, because people that are completely believe in a certain religion end up going and seeing, well, I'm not meeting Jesus. I'm not meeting Buddha.
Yes.
You know, I'm meeting my relatives, or I'm meeting something else, you know, that their expectations don't control it all.
Yeah. Or a Jewish person meeting Jesus. You know?
Right. Or an atheist having any experience at all. Because if we totally control an atheist, is going to wake up in black. Like nothing's there, you know, and that's a horrible thought. Well, let's get into that. We got a little bit of time before our next commercial break. So, you know, everybody, when they think about near death or these near death experiences, talk about the tunnel. And I found this really interesting in your book, all the different ways the tunnels take shape for people. Let's talk about the tunnel. So, you know, what are your experiences with everybody who has experienced that?
Well, the point I was making there was to illustrate how different each experience is. So we talk about people having an experience of going through the tunnel, but when they actually get there, the tunnel is so completely different for each person. You know, like it's just, and so that is an illustration of how we take a direct role in creating the experience that we have, which is a very, very important point, this direct role thing, because we are creators. We are source in this body, experiencing being separate. Okay? And so when we are creating this existence, we are creating this lifetime that we're living right now. And so we just continue to create when we leave this body and move on. We just we're just doing what we normally do, create.
Well, one of the stories I found interesting in your book of an afterlife experience, we talked about somebody who's creating, was the woman who she thought she looked ugly, and then they take her to a guy who, like, in her afterlife experience, takes her to a magical guy who makes her look beautiful, and then she wants to go somewhere, and she's like trying to get a car, and they're like, you don't need a car. I don't even tell that story. That one was really interesting to me, like somebody who created their own experience in a way.
Yes, it's a good illustration that how we take this role and create it. It's the same with that woman that I have in there, that when the person dies, all disabilities disappear. So the blind see, the deaf can hear, and the crippled can walk. Okay, but when they get to the other side, it's, you know, they're completely free because they don't have a body. But this lady had a little boy who was quite disabled. I don't know what his disability was, but he was very disabled, and he had to be carried around everywhere. And so when she had her experience, he had died ahead of her. I don't know how long, but a little while before her. So when she died, she saw him, but she saw him as still disabled, and she had to carry him around with her while she had her experience, because that's what she thought he was.
But he, on the other side, wouldn't be crippled. It's just that that's her expectation of it in a way, or what she knows of him.
Yes.
Well, yeah, like I
It's
said,
wonderful.
I really found the one funny though with a lady trying to get a car, and they're like, you don't need a car.
Yeah.
I could just picture some poor angel like trying to explain to this dead woman, like, you don't need a car, just literally Mary Poppins it, or something. Click your heels, and you're there. I thought that was a really interesting story. You wonder how many other people that don't get it that go to the other side. You hear stories too of people, just not only sometimes people are on trains or airplanes. I've heard. Like waiting to go. Like I've heard stories like that that are really interesting to me. And sometimes it's a vehicle. So, there's some other similarities besides the tunnel. I mean, the tunnel is just the one that a lot of people know, but there's other ways people have experienced it that don't include a tunnel.
Yes, exactly. Some people, when they leave their body, their relatives and or guides, or their loved ones, I should say, rather than relatives. The people are there waiting for them, or else their guides waiting for them. Sometimes they leave the body and the light is right there, and they go with the light to the other side. Some people see themselves floating through the house or the building, whatever building it is, and out the window and up into outer space. Some people find themselves in a blackness, just pure black with nothing but the void. That's what it's called, the void. And so these people have all of these different kind of experiences, leaving the body to go to wherever they're going to be going to the heaven or hell that they give themselves.
Well, when you talk about the void is scary to me. I mean, people describe that. I was watching, there's an Ancient Aliens episode, and they was all about past lives and that. And they had a famous case on there. He's all grown up now, but when he was a little boy, he would, basically say, I'm James 3, and I died in this plane crash in World War II. And, basically he knew all this information. He was a pilot who died, and like little man down, he would say. And it's a famous story for past life things. But when they had him and they were interviewing him, an Ancient Aliens, he's like in his 20s now, making people feel old. I remember that story. He says, he still remembers the dreams the nightmares he would have of dying, and that his plane would go down into the water, and then everything would be black. And this guy's getting teary eyed as he's telling his story all these years later. And he's like, there's nothing there. It was just blackness. And I'm like, that's scary. So why do you think people have the blackness? That experience.
Well, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't know that one. I don't understand it myself. The only thing I can think of is that maybe they were atheists, or they were doubters, or whatever. Maybe agnostic.
Yeah, well, that's me. Like, it's black because we don't know what to give you, buddy. You have no idea what's going on. That's all I'm afraid mine's going to be black, because I really don't know, what that experience is going to be.
Yeah, so I mean, like, we created ourselves, so that's what they created for themselves.
Oh, yeah. To me, if I die and everyth's black, I'm going to have a little panic attack. So don't, guardian angels, if you're listening, no blackness. Give me some fluffy clouds or a tunnel, whatever, but not the black. Because I believe there's another. See, the thing is, I'm not, I'm a Gnostic. I believe in another side. I've had too many experiences of contact from the other side to not believe. I'm a total believer. Yeah. I'm a total believer in a divine presence. You talked about, that nothing here is by accident. That kind of conscious experience you had, but we're not here by accident. I'm right there with you. I mean, there's just so many things to me, if you even look at them scientifically, that point to a divine creation, something that, we were, the universe and everything was created. There's, it didn't happen by accident. I'm a firm believer in that. But you wonder, this whole one of the theories I've had since I was a kid is that we are all the whole one thing. I got that at an early age, because my idea was that we're all one entity having a weird dream, basically. Because if you think about dreams, we have characters in our dreams. When we dream, we have other people in our dreams. Well, those people in your dream is your own consciousness acting out and talking to you.
That's exactly right.
If you look at people who've had multiple personality syndrome, who've gotten it because of traumatic instances like being isolated or locked away with zero, input. Their brain starts to make its own world and make its own characters, and they break personalities. To me, it's like the element of consciousness wants to divide itself as something. So that the idea that we're all this one consciousness, something I've firmly, I don't know, in my gut felt is like a real possibility.
You're right. That's true, though. That's exactly right. You got it.
Do you think this?
It's difficult for you to understand, though. It's very difficult for people to understand that, because they feel that disqualifies them as a legitimate person.
Well,
and it's sort of like thinking, you're just a thought. You're nothing.
Well,
and that's not true.
Well, I think that's always been the struggle with this. The idea of oneness is that, well, am I an individual or am I this one being? Can't be both, right? I think it can. We have our individuality, but we're all connected to one source, one thing, one consciousness.
Yeah.
Like I said, you have a dream. There's other people in the dream. They have different kind of, just think about all the dreams you've had. You have people in your dreams. Well, that's your brain doing that, talking to you. Your brain can split into different characters. Yeah. I don't know. I always felt that was the divine essence of what life is, or consciousness.
And if you go farther into my book, that's what I talk about. That's the crux of the book. Towards the end, I get a lot into consciousness and how it's possible that our consciousness is what's running the show. Now,
when people get past the tunnel, or they get past however way they get it, what is the other side, though? I mean, when they get through the tunnel, what is a lot of the main stories, or the stories you found most interesting about the other side?
Well, as I said, each person has their own other side, but basically they go to a physical location. They will see their guides or some spirit guide or whatever. They will see their loved ones, and usually most people see them as physical beings, and they hug them and they talk to them, and you go to a physical garden, or they go to buildings and they read books and they drink and they eat and they do all the things that we do here. But in reality, they don't have a body. They left their body back there. This is the creation that we are creating. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that we created every bit of the experiences we have, because it depends on if we want to go to a beautiful garden, there it is. If we want to go to a mountaintop, there it is. It all depends on the person. Nelson Thomas Benedict had a blow your mind experience, and his experience is, he had a website, but he's dead now. So I don't know if they've kept his website up, but he's also, if you go to neardeath.com and look up exceptional, and then look for Nelson Thomas Benedict, and his was just mind-blowing, just amazing, and the lessons that are in that experience.
I know one of the experiences, I don't know if it was his or one of the experiences, was somebody was like only dead for a very short amount of time, but in that short amount of time, the person said they lived like over 100 years in this other reality, and they built things, they did things, like they lived like a whole other life.
Yep. This one fellow he was gone for about 15 minutes, and he felt like he was gone for 150 years.
So like he lived a whole other life, and and when he came back, he has all those memories, like he lived it, like he remembers all those years. I'm a big Star Trek fan. And one of my, I'm Star Trek Next Generation, especially. And one of my favorite episodes, and I'm totally blowing what the name of the episode was, but Picard like gets hit by these aliens, and he ends up living like this whole other life, like till he's an old man.
I did see that one.
And then he wakes up, and it only been a few minutes. That when I read that in your book about that, that's what it reminded me of. I mean, what an incredible experience that would be, to live like a whole other life, and then come right back to your own.
Yes. And another one that I've only read one of these, so this may be, sorry, this may be the individual's own thoughts. But anyway, this one person, what was it? I've lost it now. I'm sorry. I've forgotten it.
It's all right.
Sorry.
It's all right.
That's being old.
It's late.
I'll blame my age.
It's all right. It's all right. But these stories you have in your book are incredible. These experiences people have.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the stories you could share that are like give the most proof of the life after death?
Oh, proof. Well, I think the ones that prove are the ones that bring back information that couldn't possibly, they have information they couldn't possibly know. Or, for example, they say, for example, that they've lost, their parents had twins and one twin died at birth. And so this one child is raised not knowing anything about the twin that died.
Oh, wow.
And then they die, have a death experience, and come back knowing about this twin. Another thing is seeing relatives that they've never met that have been dead years before their time. And they are able to identify them in albums, picture albums. Yeah, that's things like that, or I have a couple in my book. One is a lady who was in an ambulance. Her name is Stella. And Stella was in the ambulance, and the ambulance either got lost or I think in an accident. Anyway, the woman who was in the back with her, the attendant, lost a ring that was on her hand.
Right.
And the ring was from her mother. So it was very, it was very special to her. So anyway, then what happens is that the Stella has to be taken out of this vehicle, like the ambulance, and put in a private vehicle to be taken to the rest of the way to the hospital. So that's what they do. Well, when she comes back and she has a death experience, and after she comes back, she's the attendant comes and visits her, and she is able to tell the attendant where her ring landed, exactly where it was, and that they had had an accident and that they transferred her and brought her. And all that time she was dead. She was out of her body.
So she should have no way of knowing. And knowing where the lost object was, that's the other one I remember you had in your book was the blue shoe, which is a famous one.
Yeah.
That was a good one too.
Yeah.
You want to tell a little bit of that?
Sure. Well, the patient was named Maria. And Maria, by the way, this is on Google. You just Google the blue shoe, and you'll find it because it's so famous.
Yeah.
So anyway, she was in an operation, and the operation was being done on the second floor. So then she left her body. She had a death experience, and later she came back, and later on she's telling people about this blue shoe that's on the ledge of the hospital outside a window, and on this ledge, and she's describing the shoe, the exact kind of shoe it is, and where the laces are and everything like that. So then she nobody believes her. They all say, "Oh, you just dreamt that."
Yeah.
Anyway, finally, she gets the social worker in the hospital to go look for this blue shoe, and she does find it, but she finds it on the 7th floor, not the 2nd, and it's exactly how she said, with the laces hanging out the way that she had said, and it turns out it's a white shoe with blue trim on it.
Wow. And
So
it implies that she's
it's-
floating up out. She's on the 2nd floor. That's where her body is. But it implies that these spirits are floating way up into the sky. And you hear a lot of people talk about these instances. We had Robert Kopecki on, who had a near-death experience, wrote a book about it. And he had 3 near-death experiences actually. And one of them, he was flying up above by the street. He was up by the street lamp, like the body wants to float up. I've always been fascinated by that, because I've had some weird reoccurring dreams over my life, and there are always these dreams where I'm like floating up and I'm trying to get myself to come back down. And when I always think of those dreams when I hear these near-death experiences where people are like, I first thing I remember is I'm floating way above my body.
Yeah.
You think this
Yeah,
near-death experience?
projecting.
Do you think people back in ancient times or early formations of religion, had near-death experiences that might have influenced why they thought
I
heaven
think
was up
that-
in the sky?
Yes, absolutely. I do, sure. It makes perfect sense to some of the stories that we hear. I mean, I'm not being sarcastic. I mean, the spirituality that's come back, if you look at the ancient spirituality, I'm not talking about the one today, but the very ancient ones, there's a lot of the oneness in there. And there's a lot of the kind of material that we are talking about today.
Well, one of the things I was interested in, I read years ago, was a couple different books about the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I always found that really interesting because the stages of Bardo, or they walk them. It's like the Tibetan Book of the Dead was like a roadmap to how to get through the afterlife without basically reincarnating again. To move on to nirvana or whatever. I always find, and there's other culture. I mean, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, what the Egyptians did with their pharaohs and that, the writings on the wall, like they're trying to give them a guide map, and they believed all these, they could give them totems and things to take over the other side. I mean, we had a lot of stuff in our past about, how they dealt with death. And, even you talked about in your book about Neanderthals, burying their dead and their rituals, even in our primitive time. We had some idea of this. It's so fascinating to wonder what they experienced in their time, but what their near-death experiences would have been like.
I think they were just the same, because even children who are like 3 or 4 that are way too young to be able to know a particular religion will often have similar experiences.
Yeah, I mean, the near-death experiences of children to me are very intriguing and very informing, because they don't really have the concepts of everything like a grown adult does. So, what they're seeing to me is probably the most honest. Also and
they're very similar. That's the strange part is that they don't really change much.
That's similar to the adult experiences.
Yes.
The blind people who are blind seeing on the other side too. You talk about this in your book, that people who are deaf or no disabilities, but especially ones that are blind. People who've never seen a thing in their life, been blind since birth, having this experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we go to our commercial break? About 4 minutes about people who are blind that have had this experience.
Well, people who are blind are able to come back and describe what was going on, and go to the other side and see all kinds of things and do all kinds of stuff that they couldn't possibly do and describe. But the main point is that they're able to say who came in and out of the room, what people looked like, what they were talking about, what they thought. I love that they can talk about, they know what the thoughts are, that they can describe people. And there's a book called Mind Sight by Kenneth Ring, and he talks about how blind people are. I think they looked at 32 blind people who had death experiences, and these people were able to describe the not only what was happening during the operation, but the doctors and what they looked like, and the nurses and the people who came in and out of the room, and they wouldn't have known that. They shouldn't have known any of that.
Especially if they've been blind all their life, they wouldn't even know what color was.
That's right.
They've never seen colors before. That would be an incredible experience for somebody who's been blind all their life, never seen anything, to suddenly be seeing people and colors and all that. That to me would be life. That would be a life-changing near-death experience or death experience.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's so encouraging too, because it helps us to understand that. We have such possibility. See, that's what my book is about. My book is talking about how magnificent we are, and we don't even realize it.
And that seems to be the takeaway a lot of these people have when they have these experiences. I mean, the connectedness, but it's also the knowing. It seems like these people, you see a lot of these cases, they don't seem to have a fear of death afterwards, that they lost that fear because of that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. They no fear at all. They welcome death. They want death. they sometimes lament that they've had to come back, and they're just putting time in until they can go back again.
Yeah, I even saw you said one person became kind of a daredevil, like tempting death all the time.
Right. Yeah, because he said, "Oh, I'm not going to die. It doesn't matter."
I would love to be able to have that feeling without having to have the near-death experience. You know, I think I had that feeling when I was a kid and a teenager, or mainly when I was a teenager. You know, when you're a teenager, you fear nothing. Death's never going to touch you. You know, like you might realize what death was when you're 8 years old, or, you know, whatever. But when you hit teenager time, it's like, oh yeah, death. It ain't happened to me. You know, you don't really think about it. Somehow your mind puts it off during those teenage years. But boy, when it started with me starting to have a little bit of panic attacks, or thinking about when I got married, because I didn't want to like leave my wife behind. And then boy, it wallowed me bad. That fear of death when I had my first son, that's you know, like anxiety about it and worry about it. Like, now I really do fear death because I don't want to be separated from him. And so, you know, having that experience, to have that knowing that you're not separated, that there's always an existence afterwards, would be incredible. I just don't have to have the near death experience to really believe that, you know, I don't want to have to go through that, you know. But we're going to go to commercial break here, and we'll open up the phone lines, guys. When we come back, I'll get out those phone numbers to you. If you've had a near-death experience tonight, please call in. Not tonight, like if you had one right tonight, go to the hospital. No, if you've had a near-death experience, call in tonight and join this conversation. I'd love to hear about it. We got Jamie and Rob. I'd like to get them to talk a little bit about their near-death experiences. We'll probably get into that when we come back from the commercial break. And we haven't even talked about those who've had the negative experiences yet. I'd like to get into that with Lynn, about the people who said they've seen hell, or they've experienced frightening things after they died. Those are the more rare experiences you don't hear as much about, but there are people that have had the darker experiences. So we'll get into that when we come back from the short commercial break.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college. I've got a family to support and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine, and soon paranationmag.com.
For every Earthling who's ever dreamed of adventures beyond the stars comes the astonishing story of one who made it, Alex Rogan.
You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
Of all the life forms in all the galaxies, one has been chosen to be the last starfighter. The Last Starfighter, with the film of the #1 hit Do They Know It's Christmas, the official Band-Aid story. In the West End and across London now, rated PG.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Time to die.
You are listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight we have guest Lynn Russell, author of The Wonder of You, What Near-Death Experiences Tells You About Yourself. We're asking the big question tonight. To me, it's the biggest question. Why are we here? Where do we go? Is there more than to this just material world and life? That's what we're talking about here tonight. And I know, Jamie and Rob have both had near-death experiences, and we're going to share those tonight. But I'd love you to call in and share your experience as well. And there's only two phone lines actually open. There's the 219-230-4444 or the Skype ID OOJBland00. The other two lines are down tonight because we have our guest on that line. But call in 219-230-4444 or Skype ID OOJBland00. The lines are now open. You can call in. I want to hear, what was your experience? The other thing we haven't got into, we get into this conversation tonight, is what about those who had the more negative experiences. I know there are people who have told stories of seeing what they thought was like hell and all that. We'd love to get Lynn's thoughts on that. And if your experience, you've called in about it before, go ahead and I'm sure Lynn would love to hear your experience. You can call in and tell your story again tonight, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. You still there with me, Lynn?
I sure am.
Now, we haven't even gotten into, and I know I have a part in your book about this, is the experiences people have that are more of seem like to be negative.
Yes. Yeah. Well, very many people have those, although not nearly as many as that have the positive. I would say maybe 2%.
Let's hope it's only
negative.
2%. Let's hope there's not many people having that experience.
Yeah. So, but when they do, they will find themselves in really, it's like a hell, with their idea of hell. So but the thing is that each hell is different from one another. There's no two hells that are the same either.
Right.
So just like there's no two heavens that are the same. But anyway, and so when they find themselves in this situation, if they call to get out of it, if they ask, help me, get me out of this, instantly there's somebody there to get them out. They are out of it right away. So they don't stay there. I've never read any that have actually stayed in the hell situation. So I think that's nice and positive. But when they come back, so now they're in the positive, they'll say, well, what was that all about? They're talking to a guide or a soul of some sort. And they're told repeatedly, every single one of them is told that was something they created for themselves because that's what they thought they deserved. There was one fellow, and this one hit me strongly, this experience. This fellow was going up into the tunnel, and within the tunnel, he could feel other souls there, which isn't unusual. Sometimes that happens. And so he felt this one soul there that wasn't willing to move. And so he said, well, why don't you go up to the light? And the soul said, well, I was taught that I wasn't worthy. So he was refusing to allow himself to go to the light because he was taught that he was unworthy. Well, to me, that is so sad.
Right.
That's probably, yeah.
Well, we talk. I'm a paranormal investigator. I investigate haunted houses and that, and a lot of things paranormal investigators talk about. It does seem like there's spirits that are stuck when they're an intelligent spirit. Some of the EVPs, some of them, it seems like they're alluding to that they don't want to move on because they're afraid of the light. They're afraid of going to hell.
Yeah, it may be. I've never been able to understand if it's so beautiful there. Why do we have ghosts? But I think that might be part of the answer. Yeah,
I think it's part of it. I don't think it's all of it. The worst ones, always say as an investigator, was when I'd get children's EVPs, voices that come across as children. They're like, how can that be just? How can that be a just universe or right universe if there's a ghost of a child trapped here? And then there'd be intelligent responses from a child that is commenting on what we're doing. So it's not like some residual thing. This is awareness, and it's talking to us as a child. Is it a child? I don't know, but it makes me really sad thinking if it is.
Yeah, I agree. I don't understand ghosts at all. I mean, I know they exist. I live in a haunted house, so I know they're there.
You're right.
But I don't understand them.
Like, why are they trapped here? Like, why didn't they go on to the other light? I've seen like I said, some of my favorite movies deal with the afterlife. Frighteners I thought took a good take on it. Like, there's this door that opens up at the moment of death, and most people go floating up into the doorway, or whatever, to go to the other side. But some people stay behind because, like I said, fear of what's going to happen, or they have things here on Earth that they're still tied up in. They don't even want to go through the doorway. So it makes you wonder. I mean, if something happened to me, I don't care how peaceful or loving it is. My first thought's going to be, I want to get back to my children. That's where my fear of death is, being separated from my children.
Yeah.
I sometimes think people are afraid of being judged, like they don't want to meet their maker and they're afraid of having to be judged for things they did in their life.
Right.
They don't want to face it.
Yeah, exactly. We do have somebody waiting on the phone here.
And
Go ahead.
That
Lynn.
doesn't happen. People don't get judged. They judge themselves. They're the only ones that judge. Yeah. But I'm sure if you've had a death experience, you know that already.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're going to get into Jamie and Rob's. We got somebody else I know has had a near-death experience waiting on the phone line we're going to get to. But
okay.
One of the things that made me, I just had this thought too about another great scenario or way, what dreams may come. The people haven't seen the movie started to ruin it, but Robin Williams' wife in it commits suicide. He's already dead, and he goes to save her. That's like the plot of the movie. He goes to like hell, but it's a hell of her own creation. Like she puts herself in her eldest broken down house, and she makes herself miserable. He has to break her out of this like unreality she's created of, not knowing she's dead even. And, I thought that was a beautiful take on, like even, somebody with suicide could be redeemed.
So what's the name of that movie? I want to watch it.
Oh, you've never seen What Dreams May Come?
Oh, What Dreams May Come. Okay. No, I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, Lynn, you got to see What Dreams. I could give you a whole list as a movie person and a TV person. I can give you a whole list of shows and movies about the afterlife that I love.
Right.
One book I love that's really about the afterlife is Wish You Were Here by Joyce Isaacson, and we have her on the line. Hey, Joyce, how you doing tonight?
Hi, I'm doing okay. I've been listening to all this, and I had a real eerie, strange experience. I don't know if this was a near death or if it's an OBE or whatever, but I was actually, there was this one soul I was reading about, and he's kind of a famous soul. And I was only 17 years old at the time, and I went to bed, and all of a sudden, as I was drifting off, I felt hands on my body, and I felt like I was being pulled out by this particular individual. And I was looking at him, and he was wearing this really interesting outfit. I've never seen this outfit before in my life. And he said to me, I wanted to see you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I'm looking at myself, and I'm in bed in my covers. And he takes me into the living room. My brother was sleeping, and he said, you can put your hand right to the floor. And I said, I can? He said, yes. And I actually did this. And I was really like, I was amazed by the whole experience. I didn't even want to return, to tell you the truth. And he took me by the hand, and he said, he kissed my forehead and says, I have to put you back now. And he put me back. And when he put me back, I woke up. It was the strangest experience. And what was really crazy about it, the next day I went to the music store, and I was looking at albums, and I found him on the album, and he was wearing the same outfit. And I've never seen this before. So I'm wondering what happened.
Well, Lynn, in her book talks, you talk about OBEs and near death and the similarities and differences.
Yeah.
What did I
the only
have,
thing I would
actually?
like to know, I would just like to know if there was a message, if you got some information or some knowledge or some understanding from that experience.
I understood that he was actually watching over me, this particular soul.
Okay. Okay.
That's
That's
what I
nice.
got from him.
That's nice to know. Yeah.
I've had experiences with him after that as well. But I've never talked about it with anybody.
Yeah.
The
Well,
first
that's
time.
a very interesting experience.
Yeah,
Thank
you know,
you.
the difference is there. Thank you, Joyce, for calling in. Like she says, is it an OBE or a near death experience? I mean, of course, she was in her own bed. She probably didn't die there, but there are some similarities between OBEs and near death. You talk about this in your book.
Well, what I talk about is the differences between OBEs and death and death experience. And the differences mainly are that OBEs, you don't die. You will leave your body, and actually there's a difference between OBE and astral projection as well.
Right.
Because an OBE is spontaneous usually. I mean, it's not something that you've trained yourself to do. And so all of a sudden you'll find yourself out of your body, and you could be looking down at your own body laying there. And then you will, it only lasts a matter of seconds, probably 5-10 seconds, and then bang, you're right back in your body again. That's the most common kind. And then there's astral projection, which is, again, the person doesn't die, but these people have taught themselves to leave their body at will, and so they can put themselves down into a hypnotic state, I guess, and leave their body. And then they can go and travel, and they will go in and have all kinds of experiences. And Robert Monroe's books, I should say plural because he's got 3 out, talk about as astral projection, because he taught himself to leave, and then he goes through all these different experiences, and it's a true story. And then the death experience is when the person stops breathing, the brain stops operating, the heart stops working, and the person is dying. And they do die. And when the person dies, and they leave their body and they have an experience out wherever they're going, that is a death experience. So that's the difference between the 3.
See, I had a very similar experience for my out-of-body or astral travel. I never knew what to classify it as. But when I was 17 to 18 years old, I was tormented by this shadow being. Some people say demonic. I don't know what to call it, but it was terrifying. It would attack me at night. And one of the ways it would attack me is just like kind of like Joyce's experience. Hers was pleasant. Mine wasn't. Is this feeling of something grabbing you and ripping you out of your body. I would see myself, it'd show me, I'm still in my bed, I could see my body, and then it would take me and show me things, this entity, show me things to make me feel awful or horrible or whatever. And one of the things it showed me was something that I totally was able to prove actually happened, was my girlfriend cheating on me. The exact scenario where she kissed this other guy, she confirmed it for me, what I saw. She's like, how could you have seen that? Nobody knew about that. Like I knew, it showed me all kinds of things. So I think out-of-body experience, for me, that showed me that I'm something more than my physical body. And that's, to me, where the similarity between your death experiences and out-of-body come in. Joyce, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, that's actually it. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for calling in, Joyce. Check out our book, Wish You Were Here.
You.
Wish You Were Here is an amazing book about the afterlife, and people should definitely check it out. Thank you, Joyce. You have a great night.
You too. Thank you. Take care.
But for me, having that negative entity always makes my thoughts go to some of these people's experiences that have had the hell experience. And created or not, there seems to be negative entities out there. I've experienced being a paranormal investigator, and in my life, the shadow person experience. Where do you think? Where do you think the negative? Maybe everybody's going to be saved on the other side, or everybody, is creating their own reality, but where do you think the negative entities do fall into this? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I can't speak to those because I don't know anything about them, to be honest. All of the experiences as I said, there were people who had negative experiences, but they created them themselves, and they were removed as soon as they asked to be taken away from there. So I don't really have much knowledge about any negative entities.
Then there's the people who also say, some people who think there should be a hell because there's people like Hitler, awful people like, I was talking about the Green River Killer who's in jail right now. They were going to let out, killed 71 women. We would not want them to have that kind of bliss.
Yeah. Well, what happens with that, it isn't, they have to face what they've done. Each one of us has to, and because most of us we do bad things that we wish we hadn't, and we do things that we were really happy we did, and that's the average. And so any judgment comes from ourselves. We look at what we've done, and we are the ones who judge ourselves. But what happens is you become the person that you were dealing with. So you become the person that you harmed.
I always found that really interesting. With life reviews.
Yes, you have to absolutely feel exactly as if you're that person feeling everything. So whether it's good or bad, if you do something good and the person feels really good inside, then that's great, and then that's what you feel. But if you do something that's negative, then you feel that as well. And so becoming the person that you have harmed, and then you also become and feel the feelings of all the people that person dealt with. So, for example, if you upset somebody, let's say, for example, and that person left the office and went driving home and cut somebody off because they're upset, you would feel that person that got cut off. You would feel their feelings too, because it stemmed from you.
Well, man, Hitler had to have had one hell of a life review.
Yeah. So that, I don't think, you see, we think that nothing happens, but it's true that it doesn't. When we are having a life review and we are looking and feeling what we've done, when we get really upset with ourselves, then we get, but again, this isn't at the Hitler level.
Yeah.
When we get upset with ourselves, we're told it's okay. It's just a learning experience, not to get too upset. However, there are people who have been asked, what have you done with your life? And when they're asked that, they immediately feel shame and anger at themselves because they've done nothing. They just got scooped off. They haven't done anything with their life. And we come here with a goal or a task or something that we have to accomplish. And that's why we're sent back, because we're not finished. We didn't accomplish it yet. And so when we have this goal that we're supposed to accomplish and we just sit on our laurels and do nothing, then, that's not very good. Yeah. You get a negative experience then. I don't mean a negative experience like a hell, but you'll be told, what's the matter with you? Why didn't you smarten up?
I got another movie for you. You should see another one on my top. See, I told you all my favorite movies have to do something with the afterlife usually, is Defending Your Life. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. No. God. I always forget the actors' name in that one. Defending Your Life. Check that out. It's about the afterlife, and they basically get angel lawyers that have to basically they're deciding if they're moving on to the next level, or they got to go back to Earth. It's hilarious comedies. Check that out. That's what makes think so. Yeah, because it has this whole life review process that's just hilarious. It's hilarious. You got to watch it. We got somebody waiting on the phone line I want to get to here. We got 860 area code. Who do we got on the line?
Hi, Jason. This is Ariana.
Hey, Ariana. Doing good.
Yeah, I hadn't wanted to tell my experience, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I was 5 years old, little kid, and it was at night, and whatever it was, I had fallen down the stairs. I went the wrong way. I was going to the, at night. So so anyway, I saw there was an angel or a goddess. She was dressed in white, definitely female, and she grabbed my hand. Again, I'm 5 years old, so the concept,
right.
I don't know, I probably didn't understand a lot, And she took my hand and she took me into this beautiful field with this beautiful big blue budding tree. It was so vibrant. It did remind me, later of the movie what dreams may come, dreams may come of, or something.
Yeah.
And anyway, she told me to look back, and I saw my body, and it was twisted. Of course, I fell down the stairs, and you know, and I went with her, and she was explaining to me that I had a lot of things to do, and that I was special, and that I had to go back. And I said, but I want to keep going with you because it was so beautiful, and you know, and loving, and everything else like that, you know. And you know, but she said no. And you know, so since then, everything has kind of like fallen like dominoes for me, and I find it kind of amazing. There was no, like I said, there was no tunnel, so you know, I don't.
But there isn't for
kind
everyone.
of agree with that.
Well, not everybody has a different experience. Is what we learned from Lynn tonight. Is everybody has a different experience. Not everybody has a tunnel. You know, it varies for everyone.
And the fact that there was a guide there or an angel there waiting to take you or to greet you was significant, because lots of people have that as well.
Yeah.
But that does sound definitely like a death experience. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, Ziriana, for calling in and sharing that with us tonight.
Definitely. Thank you. You guys have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
You.
Okay, thank you.
You know, one of my, you know, I'll mention, it's just how I am on my show. I always mention my favorite movies and TV shows and stuff that relate to this sometimes, is The Dead Zone. You remember that Stephen King story, and they made a movie, Christopher Walken. You know, he goes into a coma, but you know, at some point you could look at that almost like near death. But he wakes up with you know, the psychic abilities. How many of these near death experiences do you think anybody felt that being close to the veil or going to the other side, they woke up with an extra perception?
Oh, that is so common. People who have had death experiences definitely come back with abilities that they didn't have before. And very often they're psychic abilities as well as other kinds. Like, for example, some people, there was one girl, you know, she was just a college or a high school, I think, actually. And she came back, she hated math, and that was her worst subject, was math. And
mine too.
And when she came back, was a math whiz, you know? Yeah, so, and their personality also changes. People become very, very different when they come back. But as far as abilities, there's some people that come back and, you know, they might be strumming a guitar before their death, and they come back a music virtuoso, you know, like writing symphonies.
Idiot savant syndrome. Yeah, like they should have no knowledge of this, but they get some kind of brain injury or near death, and they're able to speak another language or do something crazy. Yeah, that's to me that points to past life. You know, that idea, because you know they have this knowledge. You know, I mean, how many of your people, these experiencers, or somebody grasped an idea of a past life from their near death experience?
Oh, many. Yes. That they're told that. Sometimes they're told, well, you haven't done your job here. Do you want to stay and have another life? But the new life will be exactly the same as the one that you're in now, because you haven't finished what you're supposed to do.
Like the law of karma.
So that's where, yeah. So that's common for people to talk about. And sometimes they'll have a life review, and the life review that they have in this life is connected with the life that they had before this.
We've had a couple guests on recently about past life, you know, past life regression, and that seems to be the common theme with a lot of these past lives, and that the people are trying to learn these lessons that they didn't learn in these previous lives. So yeah, it makes you wonder when people go on the other side what their life review is. And again, Defending Your Life has a great scene in it where they can go to this little like museum or like the thing where they go in and they go to this little booth and they can see their past lives. It's hilarious. Oh. Yeah, definitely got to see that movie. But it does make you wonder how much, you know, you talk about us coming into this world with amnesia. I've always thought if there's past lives, there's something why do we forget? Why do we forget these lives before? If we need to learn these lessons, why are we forgetting them? That seems something not right with the system, even with that.
Well, I can answer that one.
Yeah.
The people, there are people many people who remember their past lives, but usually that's children, and they start to forget by the time they're 6, 7, so they don't carry it all their lives. Some people do carry it all their lives, but then the problem is that with children even, and either way, they're still bonded with that past life. So even though they're in this life now, this isn't real. The life that they had before is the real life. And so they have a hard time adjusting to this world. And that's what I think, that we would not be able to function properly and be the person we are in this life if we remember.
We need like a fresh start, a way to, go on without all the regrets and stuff. But it's interesting when you get into the past life thing, because, the guys I've had on, like Chris Lee and, forgetting the last one I just had on about past lives, but they talk about pain conditions, being eliminated when they realize about their past life, when they discover, I have this pain in my neck.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's limited once they recognize it. It seems like an imperfect system for carrying around these pains in your body and issues you have without knowing why until you see your past life. Seems, I don't know, in my mind, it seems like there's still something imperfect about the system for us being born and having these issues and not knowing why, because we can't remember our past life.
Yeah. Well, and another question I get asked is, why can't we remember where we came from before we come here? The in-between life.
Right.
And if we did that, we wouldn't function. We would not be able to function here, because this is so separate from where we were that it would be like we've been constantly yearning, just like I said, with people who remember like have had NDEs, when they come back, they really would rather be over there than here.
Well, that might be the reason why we can't remember. Yeah, because the want to be there. Well, there's another movie like that. Another movie for you to check out, The Discovery of Robert Redford, and that he proves the existence of the afterlife, and everybody starts killing themselves. Oh, cool. Everybody starts killing themselves because it scientifically proves.
See that one.
Yeah, it's really messed up. We got somebody who's been waiting on the phone line here. I better get to him. We got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good, brother. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for calling in.
So I just have one question, but it's a 2-part question. Hey, Lynn, it's very nice to meet you. So
hello.
The first part of my question is, based on all of the experiences that you've documented, has there been a consistent factor or series of factors that allow near-death experiencers to come back to life? And even with that, the second part of my question is, would that imply then, based on certain circumstances, that moving on to the afterlife for them is an option? Why or why not?
I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure I got the question, but let me just see if I got it. You're asking that, are there any people who have died and come back? Is that what the first part of the question is?
Has there been like a series of reasons or factors that have allowed these experiencers to come back to life compared to many others that have passed on and haven't come back?
We don't know about the ones that didn't come back, Zach. That's the problem. We don't know why they didn't. But I guess what Zach, are you asking, what's the commonality between all these near-death experiences and why they had to come back? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The one reason why people have to come back over and over again is because they didn't finish what they came here to do. So they've not finished their task. And sometimes the task that they need to finish, the situation isn't set up yet. Like, for example, they have a daughter, and the daughter is 10 years old, let's say. And so then they get a message that when their daughter is 30 or 25 or something, that something really serious is going to happen in her life, and she needs that person, the mother or the father or whoever, to be there. And so they'll come back for that reason, because the situation hasn't happened yet. But most often it's because they haven't finished what they came here to do. That's the most common reason why.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what's the second part of that?
The second part of the question is that for many near-death experiencers, from what they have experienced, they've been allowed to come back. Would that imply that, based on certain circumstances, would moving on to the afterlife be an option for them? Why or why not?
No. As I mentioned earlier in the program, I was giving a talk one time, and after my talk, a lady came up to me and said that she had had a death experience, and now she's just marking time. She can't wait to get back. She's not happy in this life, and she does not want to be here, and she's not doing anything to try and make it better. And I felt really sorry for her, because that's, but she didn't have a choice. That she's here and she has to be here until she does. Now, having said that, those are people who have had death experiences and returned. There are people who die and they didn't have the death experience in between, and they haven't done anything. So then they would have to come back to the same life that they've lived, a similar life or almost the same, and redo it, because they haven't finished their job, which is what we talked about a minute ago. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely does make sense. Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you so much, Lynn, for answering my question. I do greatly appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for calling in, Zach. You have a great night, bud.
Hey, you too, brother. You take it easy.
Have you had any stories of people who got to the other side and said, "Yes, it's your time. Come down the light. Come down the tunnel," and they're like, "No, I'm going back," and fought it off and came back? Yes, I would like to hear that.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
Well, there's not very many of those.
Right, but I'm interested.
Most of those. Yeah, they do happen, and usually they come back because of their children or because of some loved one that they want to be here for. So yes, that does happen. There was one lady who was in a car accident. This is an interesting story. Schaefer is her last name. I can't remember her first. I think it's Karen. I think it's Karen Schaefer is her name, and she's on neardeath.com. Okay, and her story is that she was in a very serious car accident about 6 months after she had given birth to a little boy. So little boy is at home, and she's driving, and she gets this accident, and she's killed. And she goes to the other side, and the guides, so she starts right away. I don't want to be here. I want to be back with my baby. I've got to go back. I've got to go back. So these guides and the angels and whatever else are saying, well, no, this was part of the plan. You had ordered, your son was supposed to be raised not by you, by another woman, and your husband was supposed to have lost his wife during this life. Wow. So all this has been arranged, and you've arranged it with them, and everything is all planned, and you can't go back. And she keeps saying, I don't care. I'm going back. And she just goes on and on and on about it until finally they say, okay, fine. And they send her back. And so she's here now, and she's still, now that's about 20 odd years ago that happened.
She's still with her husband, and I wonder, is she still with the husband? Because he was predestined to be with somebody else. That's where you get into this too. Is the talk of like they plan their lives. We plan our lives out before we come. That's what you're inferring here. That there's some grand scheme.
Yes. Well, there is a grand scheme. Sorry, Buddha. But there's also we first of all, let's say, for example, a brand new soul. So this soul says, okay, I'm going to.
Uh-oh. You still there, Lynn? Uh-oh, we lost her. It says I'm still connected to her. Lynn, you hear me? It just stopped.
She got awful quiet.
Yeah. It says we're still connected, but I don't hear her. Let me hang up and try calling her back. Hold on. It's definitely not my audio since you can hear it ringing.
I'm so sorry.
That's all
I
right.
don't know what that was about.
I know it just cut you off. It said we were still connected, but yeah, I couldn't hear you or anything.
Yeah. No, and it was somebody phoned me. And it cut everything off. I don't even know who the phone call was, but anyway, that's what happened. And it's 11 o'clock here, so I don't know who was phoning me at this hour.
Maybe a phone call from the dead. That's
say.
Yeah, no kidding. I do want to get into Jamie and Rob's experience too. We got about 20 minutes before the next commercial break or less than. Jamie, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience you had?
Sure. I actually had two. The first one, I was probably about 5 or 6, but the one that stands out the most to me was the one that was in my 20s. That one's a little harder to talk about because of the circumstances. But there was a person who was severely intoxicated and had lost his mind over some personal issues and decided one night he was going to try to kill me. And he was suffocating me, and you could start feeling everything leaving as it was happening. I stopped fighting. It was he's an ex-football player, just huge, pushing down on me and everything. As things were like kind of going on, I started getting more and more comfortable. There wasn't like a tunnel that I saw. It was more of a white light that just started to, like, a very, very loving, comfortable light started to surround me and envelope me. And it was kind of euphoric, and it was kind of like you're drifting to sleep, and it's like everything was just kind of okay. My eyes were open while it was happening most of the time. I could feel this and envision this. I was staring at a hanger on the closet floor, and I decided, maybe I would stop fighting and kind of go along with it. But it was actually Mother's Day. It was 4:30 in the morning on Mother's Day. And all I kept thinking was my mom, and that I could not have this be her Mother's Day forever. I just kept seeing my mom. Other things, I've seen visions of other scenes of my life happening, but it was her that, made me want to not go with it. So I was hanging on and kind of playing, dead. He ended up thinking he had accomplished it, rolled over drunk, passed out. And I slowly started getting like the feeling back in me and everything. And I took off as soon as I could.
Sure.
But there she is in a life or fight or flight situation. And, death is almost like calling to her there, like to come over that warm feeling. But, like just like having children or having you have a loved one, you feel like you had to get back to, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my mom, I would have just went to sleep, and it was the most comforting, loving feeling ever.
Yeah. You can see why a lot of people would probably not come back, because they have that feeling they've never had before. It's, it's hard probably to walk away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Rob,
And-
you
and
go ahead.
It's nice that you thought about your mom that way, you know, and that you gave, you know, that's wonderful that you came back for her. That shows real love.
Now,
Yeah,
Rob,
I couldn't imagine.
as well too. I wanted you to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I had something happen when I was younger, probably 10, but this was like 1984. I think I was like 20 or roundabout there. And I was at work one day and I don't know exactly what happened. I mean, I passed out at work and I got this bright light in my face. I was like sheer panicking because I could feel it happening. I felt myself hit the floor, and there's nobody at work except me and my brother. And he thought I was dying basically because my dad passed away when I was 4 from a heart attack. So my brother's freaking out. I was unconscious for 45 minutes, had a grand mal seizure. And kind of like what Jamie's saying, I had the sheer panic. I was freaking out. And then I felt myself like, almost come out of my body. I could see myself and that panic was gone. And it was kind of like, it was this calm type feeling. And, I could see, like, I could sense everything. I don't know if I was really seeing it but I could sense everything. And paramedics came. I didn't wake up until I got to the hospital, and I spent 3 days in intensive care, and they never really found out what happened to me or what was wrong with me, but they diagnosed me with epilepsy because I had a seizure and put me on medication. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of a life-changing experience for sure. Because I mean, I got to wherever it was that I went, and like Jamie was saying, it was a really comfortable feeling, and I feel like something or someone just said, it's not your time, and I could feel myself being like sucked back to my body. So I don't know if that's really a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience, but it was a weird experience.
Well,
and when
a near death.
Yeah, when I did come to, like, I mean, if anybody's had a grand mal seizure, I was completely just blown out, exhausted. You could have done anything to me, I wouldn't have cared. It took about 3 days for me to recoup from it. And when I went home, I still wasn't, my normal self. It took a while to kind of come back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you wonder how many
and people who have comas also have feelings of near-death experiences.
Yeah,
because they're literally on the hair's edge of passing over to the other side, and they can spend months like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll know conversations that are happening around them. They'll know all this stuff when they wake up. That's, to me, and their eyes are closed, but they're aware of all this stuff. It's very similar to the near-death experience, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the, sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
No, go ahead.
Well, one of the things, you wonder, they're having these, when somebody like Rob or Jamie, they're not sure if they had died or not. You wonder if maybe they were just close enough that they're at this point where they're given an option. Do you want to leave now? Like you think people could have multiple exit points that they could choose. Okay, this is it. I've had enough. You wonder if that's a possibility.
That's kind of
well, I'm not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's like almost exactly how I felt. Was you're on the line. You can go this path or you can go this path. But I felt something pulled me back to the present,
I mean, how many times do you think you've had where people were given an option? Like, you can go now or you can go back, are there scenarios like that?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure who you were speaking with. But it doesn't happen very often. It does happen, but not frequently. Sometimes though, and here's another thing that's a paradox actually, and it doesn't make sense, is that sometimes people will be asked, do you want to stay? And the person will say yes. And then they'll be told all the reasons why they have to come back.
Oh, that's kind of a jerk move from the other side.
Yeah.
Hey, you like this place? It's really lovely. You'd like to stay, wouldn't you? Yeah. Well, you can't. You have to go back to that crappy world. You know, that seems like a really like jerk thing to pull.
Now, there are some people who, in the process of leaving their bodies and the process of dying, say they're in the middle of the tunnel or whatever, they know that they're not going to stay. But they're rare. That's not very often that happens at all.
It also seems
Most
like
people want to stay.
It also seems like, you know, one of the things is, I mean, when people are going to the other side, there really there's no eyes, there's no body, that people have this kind of like fourth, fifth dimensional way of seeing and feeling things, like not just the connectedness, but it's like they're able to see 360 around their own form. They're able to see see multiple views at one time. I've always wondered, do you think that it's why when they come back, they have such a hard time describing their experience, because now they're trying to relate it to a, 2D, so trying to relate a 3D experience to a 2D experience, kind of.
Yeah, maybe. What does happen though is that one of the people that was, I think he was upset about the word near. And anyway, he said that because it's so hard to describe, because we're talking about spirit and this is a physical world.
Right.
So we don't have the same language to express.
Well, does it seem like a lot of these people, when they're having these near-death experiences, that most of all the communication they're having with any other entity on the other side, be it angels or passed on relatives, or is pretty much all telepathic in a way? It's all thought transference?
Yeah, and it starts with telepathic right away, immediately. There's never a time when they're verbally speaking.
So more often than not, it's more telepathic than it's verbal speaking.
Yes, it's all just telepathic communication, which really is actually quite nice because it's very fast. Your thought is just flash. And so, and it's quite comfortable once they don't have a hard time getting used to it. And once they start communicating in that way, it's very easy and very fast.
What it reminds me of when I hear these near-death experiences and the way that like an angel or a relative's communicating with them telepathically is, I've had a number of alien abductees on my show. And this is usually how the aliens communicate with people, is this telepathic sense, this able to communicate between the minds. And when I hear near-death experiences, there's such a similarity there. Have any of these ever pointed to anything to do with alien life, or anybody experienced anything in near-death experience that gave them any clue to that?
Very, very, very few. There are a few. Once in a while, I actually can't list one, but I can remember that there was a couple that they wanted to know what was on other planets while they were on the other side, and they did visit other planets and other life forms and learned a little bit, but they didn't bring it back. When they come back, they forget it all.
It is curious, some of these near-death experiences that people get to their side and like, oh, I want to see this. Oh, I want to know the answers to this. That people kind of go into this exploration mode where they go to different places.
Yeah. When I found out that when we died, we had this knowledge, it was just like, yes, because I love learning. So that was like a big,
Oh yeah, I'd be going all over the world looking at things, and you kind of point this out in your book that some people have the tunnel and all that, or they're whisked away to this other realm, the other side. But some people, when they pass on, are right here on the Earth plane, like going around and seeing different things across the world.
Yes, that's rare, but it does happen. Yes. As a matter of fact, there was one fellow. He died in the hospital. He was being operated on. And during his death, he was wandering around the hospital because these guys, he was bored about watching them trying to revive him. And so he just left. And he went to, I don't know why he wound up in the children's ward and the baby. And there was this little baby that couldn't speak. It was pre-verbal. And this child was in real pain. And nobody could find out what was wrong with him. And so when this man came back to his body, when he came back into it, and spoke to the people, he told them what was wrong with that little baby. And they were able to go and fix it.
Oh, wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. But they're rare. They're very, very rare that people stay at this level. Or I should qualify that, because usually those are the people who are in the hospital getting an operation, and they watch them, resuscitating them, and then they go back into their body.
I love that he got bored with it. That he got bored with it. It's like, yeah, this is boring. It's kind of your life. But this seems to be like a detachment
sort of
from
like what happened with Maria and the blue shoe. She was wandering and doing things. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've heard of experiments that doctors have had, where they put a clock up, or they put, or not a clock. What was it? There was this one experiment that this hospital did where they wanted to see people who might come back, might see a certain message or something that they wrote that nobody else could see.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody came, and they had reports of people being able to tell them what that message was that had died in the hospital and came back from their death experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is also a test that they do of out of body, or at least astral projection. They'll put something in, a high place and then ask them to tell us what it is. Yeah.
Well, we're going to go to our last commercial break. We still got the phone lines open. You can call in after this commercial break. We'll open the phone lines back up. Call in if you had a near-death experience. I've heard some great ones tonight. I'd love for you to share. Call into the show. But we'll be back with our guest, Lynn Russell, author of The Wonder of You: What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. All right, guys, we'll be back with a short commercial break.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
Phantasm, the film that puts the fun in funeral. And as for a fiendish story, it does have a burial plot. Come prepared to scream, because if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. Phantasm from Avco Embassy Pictures. Rated R under 17, not admitted without parenting. Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
This fall, a new hard-hitting police drama is coming to Friday night. He was a well-to-do cop transferred to a troubled precinct downtown. His new partner is a space traveler with a passion for justice. It's Yuppie and the Alien.
Look, you might vaporize dissidents in Alpha Centauri, but in this precinct, we do it by the book.
I'm so terribly sorry, Captain.
Goog, I'm sorry. Don't miss this one-of-a-kind police drama. They're fighting crime the hard way, in designer clothes, with $250,000 sports car and a UFO.
Partner, let's go cruise in the car and look moody.
One tough downtown precinct, two outsiders doing things their way. Yuppie and the Alien on VBC.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Heat 'em up. Do, re, be gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight, we've been talking to our guest, Lynn Russell, author of The Wonder of You, What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. It is the biggest question we should be asking. What are we? Why are we here? Where are we going when we die? And you know, something I've always wondered since I was a kid. There's a new show I've been watching on Amazon Prime with my wife called Upload. In the premise of the show is they create a virtual afterlife. Basically, people are afraid to die. So with technology, they create a virtual world where they upload people when they die. Instead of dying, they live on in this virtual world. It seems like a very crummy idea is what the show is putting on, but it makes you wonder with all this technology that talk about putting chips in people's brains and cryogenics and stuff that man is always looking for a way to escape death. Should we? That's the question I asked. If you had the choice to upload yourself to some virtual immortality, or discover what's on the other side? Answer that big question. Because if you went to that virtuality, you're going to just live in some virtual video game eternity. You'll never know the answers, and maybe never see your loved ones that went there. It's a big question. It's a good show. Check it out. Upload. It's just on Amazon Prime now. But I was thinking about that with our guest tonight. You know, if you knew you could have a choice to go to the other side or go to this virtual world, what would you choose? I would pick the other side. I would take my chances because I believe there's something there. What would you choose? Well, you can call tonight. Tell us about your near-death experience if you had one. I'd love to hear from it. The phone lines are tonight 219-230-4444 or Skype ID OOJBland00. We are taking your calls. Call in, but let's go ahead and get back to our guests. Thank you for hanging in there with us, Lynn.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, I was talking, there's a show, Upload, and in it, man decides to create a virtual afterlife. Basically, if you're rich enough, you can afford this digital afterlife where you live in this hotel, and then there's people that can't afford very much on the other side, and they live a horrible existence in this virtual afterlife. It really, but it makes me wonder. I mean, like, man doesn't really look deeply at like these experiences. Okay, with the technology we're going, we might try to escape going to the other side with something like this.
There are a few people who have had full death experiences, and they have never died. They just had it. You know how I talked about, and you talked about your psychic experiences that don't seem to make any sense. But these people had experiences that were full-fledged death experiences, and they were not dead at all.
Well,
so it's possible, I suppose.
Well, for this though, you're cheating death. Man's cheating death. I mean, that's what the cryogenics is. That they could be reborn or brought back. But this is putting them in a virtual upload. It's like skipping, finding out what's on the other side. I mean, it's kind of my worry. Is this what we're heading to? Think about people like your mom, who's an atheist, that don't believe there's anything after you die. They would be all for going to a virtual afterlife and living eternity, or for at least a lot longer.
So what makes you think that would be possible in real life? I mean, it makes a good story, but in real life.
Well, there's things technology-wise that we're heading to. We're mapping the brain. One of the things that people have talked about is, to me, it's just a copy. It's just a copy of your brain pattern that becomes AI. It's not really you. You still move on to the other side. But there's ideas of like hooking the brain up after death and keeping it alive, or putting it in a virtual world, like the concept of another movie, Vanilla Sky, very depressing movie. But this idea man has to find a way to cheat death. Should we?
Well, but you see, you're talking about the physical, but we're spiritual, and death is spiritual. So there's that you can't grab hold of the spiritual and just stuff it somewhere. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Man, it seems like though that being the creatures that we are, we have this innate fear down deep of death, and especially if you don't believe in an afterlife, that we are trying to find ways to escape it. Live longer, and But for me,
that's true.
It's a good. The show Upload tackles a lot of these concepts, is why I like it. Like there's a character in there. She wants her father to upload to this virtual realities because he's dying, and he's like, no, your mom's not there. I'm going to keep my faith that there's another side. I want to be with her, and she just doesn't get it. To her, there's nothing. So it's to say, there's a lot of people out there that believe there's nothing, and you have to wonder where man will go 1,000 years from now. What we'll be able to do. Will we cheat death, and should we?
Yeah.
It seems like we shouldn't. From what people see from the other side, that we do need to move on to that other existence.
Yes, I don't think we have a choice. I think that when we do this life, and whether we do it for 1 year or 20,000 years, you still eventually have to be our reality, which is spirit, soul.
One of the things we didn't talk about too much tonight is the moments of death. I always found this interesting with near-death experiences. There's another. I'll mention another TV show I was a fan of, was Dead Like Me. It only had one season, but it was in that they're reapers, basically these people who died or chosen to be reapers, and they take people's souls. And what they do is they take somebody's soul out of the body right before the horrible thing's supposed to happen to them, like the accidents. And I always thought that was interesting because you hear these stories of people, like they always seem to be taken out of their body before like the really horrible thing happens to them.
Yes. I think I saw that one. Yeah.
Oh, Dead Like Me. Yeah. But what are the story? Yeah. What are the stories like that? When I know you've had those in a lot of those cases where people seem to be taken out of their body before the moment of pain or death.
Yeah. Some people, for example, this Stella, remember the lady I told you about with the ring, that she knew where the ring had gone?
Yeah.
She was hit by a car. But she was out of her body before, like she was still rolling on the ground, and she was already watching from the top. That happens a lot, that people will leave the body almost before the thing happens.
Yeah. I find that really comforting, an idea. One of the most comforting things I find is these stories of people who seem to be taken out of their body right before the accident, especially when, you think of people who've died horrible ways, it makes you feel, or you'll have a family member that didn't die the greatest way. It makes you hope that they didn't feel that pain. They didn't suffer like that they were detached from it. So, and that's why I love that show, Dead Like Me, because it made me feel better. Like, at least hopefully people died in a horrible way or murdered, that somehow they were detached from it. They were not made to suffer like that.
Right.
You hope.
And that does happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
it's interesting.
Your book, the wonder of you, what near-death experience tells you about yourself. What you kind of got into that, the connectedness, all that, but what is the main lesson you think people should be learning from your book?
Okay, well, my book is very different than almost any near-death experience book, because I look at death, but I look, first of all, what happens after for those people who don't return, because that's part of what I've got in my book is.
Yeah.
So there's people that return and tell us all this stuff, but what about the ones that stay there? So, and I've been able to get ideas of what that might be. So that's in there. I've also looked at the big, deep questions that people are trying to understand, like, why are we here? What is life all about? What are we supposed to be doing? And how are we connected to this source? And are we, those kind of things. Where do we come in with God? So all of those are the kind of questions that I answer in my book. But the big thing that I answer is to talk to people about how magnificent they are. And because most of us don't realize, we don't know our own beauty. We have been taught throughout our life that we've got to smarten up and do better. And that's a shame. That's a shame, because we really are quite amazing. And we can accomplish way more than we are right now in this life, in this existence. Everything that we do and see, we have created, and not hocus pocus. Just we've created it through our choices, through our thoughts, through our attitudes, through the way we look at the world and we look at each other. It's just black and white choices, and we chose what we've got. Now, not everybody, you're not responsible for this virus, for example.
Right.
We didn't physically choose that, but it was choices within this world that connected. We don't have control over other people's behaviors, but we do have control over how we handle it and how we deal with it. So those are the things that I try and help people to understand, is their strengths, their power, and what they can accomplish, because they can accomplish way more than we think we can.
I think the hard part for people, and for me even, to grasp it about a lot of these stories and these with the concept of, like we talked about before, these things being your life being kind of pre-planned out somewhat, is like, do we have free will or is there predestination? Like these things seemed all planned. Maybe that's just because time doesn't exist on the other side. I don't know, but I'd like to think we have free will. I mean, you coming away from this, do you believe we have free will?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have way more free will than we realize. But there are things that are pre-planned. So let me explain. Before we come into this existence as a soul, this is what I was going to talk about when the phone rang.
Oh, yeah.
I lost you. Yeah. So anyway, before we come here, we separate off and we become a soul. And then we say, okay, we're going to go to Earth and have a life experience. Just said. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
So we're going to have we're going to have a life experience. We're going to come here and be people. Okay. So then we say we're going to have a chore that we have to accomplish. Now, the chore that we have to accomplish is always to do with the betterment of the world. It might be a single person, but it's the betterment. It's never, ever anything negative. So we have this goal that we set, and it can be something very small, or it can be something very large, huge. But the point is, then we start to develop all kinds of things to help us to get to our goal. So, for example, we choose the people in our existence, and family, best friends, even a teacher that might be in and out of your life, or somebody you met in the park and walked away. The people that are going to be significant, and their connection with you will help you to accomplish your goal. So that's what we choose, the people. Then we choose events that will guide us in that direction. So they're not always beautiful. They're not always wonderful. They can be quite awful, actually, but they guide us towards some goal that we have set for ourselves, or a task of some sort. Then we choose ourselves, and we choose, but just a minute, I'm going to go back to the events. Mm-hmm. We don't choose every single event that ever happened to us. We choose the main events that will get us to that goal. All right. But we also choose ourselves. We choose what we're going to look like, what race we're going to be in, what country are we going to live in, what nationality, all of those things. We choose everything.
I believe that.
Our intelligence, if we're going to be good looking or not, or, any of those kind of things. They all get chosen before birth. And then we come here with complete amnesia and forget all about it. And then most of the time the people do accomplish their goal, but we don't have control over another person. And sometimes somebody who was supposed to help us in that goal gets killed, or gets into an accident, or dies in some way, or can't accomplish it for whatever reason.
Variable factors.
So then somebody else has to step in, and if there isn't another somebody to step in, you have to do it over again in another life.
I've over the years become more of a firm believer that souls do choose their existence here. I remember I told you how I saw my 4-year-old son before he was born. I saw this image of he looked like he could have been the age of my 8-year-old now, like 8 or 9 years old. This translucent boy I saw. Well, when he a year or so ago, he told my wife this, my son, my 4-year-old son, he's only like 3, that I chose you, mommy. I chose you. And and that I go back to that thing. And when I saw him, it was like a couple days before I was supposed to get married to my wife. When I saw this translucent image of a boy in my parents' living room, the house isn't haunted, and I knew he wasn't a ghost. I somehow knew this entity who's smiling at me. And the day he was born, when they put him up to my wife and she held me, he was crying. He stopped crying and he gave me the same smile that this boy gave me
Ah.
translucent boy. Like I knew this is the boy I saw even when he was a baby.
Yeah. Cool.
But when he said that to my wife, that just proves it to me that like we somehow choose each other. One of the things we didn't get into that we talk about a lot in the past life shows we've done is soul groups. People seem to have soul groups too. Have you seen evidence of that in the near death experiences? Like groups of souls that they seem to be connected to?
Yeah, there are soul groups that I'm told about. To be honest with you, yeah, I guess there's a bit of that in the death experiences, because people will often, when they've left this life and they see, loved ones and so on, they'll see groups of people that they've spent lives with. So that's, there must be soul groups. But the point is that I want to make is that not everything is written in blood. It's all very flexible, and it's just a plan, and plans can, be changed.
Yeah, well, I always
So
quote.
we do have free will.
I always quote Yoda from Star Wars saying, "The future is always in motion." There could be variable factors, things that can change, whatever. We can have a kind of an idea, the roadmap, but it can spiral off to different directions. You never know. That's why psychics can't be 100% right, I don't think, because the future is always in motion.
That's right.
But there seems to be some roadmap. That's what a lot of this seems to tell us. That there is some kind of roadmap or some kind of guide or kind of storyline. Like people have to play parts. One of the things I've wondered why people don't come back is, I've always wondered if death is like you read a book, you become immersed in the characters in the book or a particular character, and then when you're done with the book, you let it all go. It was just a story. How much do you wonder if this, when you die, you realize you were just playing a part, like an actor?
And actually, I think that does happen. It's exactly what I think.
See,
I think this is just another movie, and we're the writers and the directors and the producers and the actors. We're everything. We do it.
Well, one of the reasons why we might reincarnate or come back, I would have to think if you had eternity on the other side, there's no time, there's no threat, there's no fear, it's love and everything. But does that get boring? There's I mentioned this recently with a reincarnation episode. There's a great Twilight Zone episode. I forgot the name of it now, where this guy, he dies. And of course, this is kind of saying he's in hell, but he dies and then he thinks he's in heaven at first because he's like in his favorite hotel. He can ask and get anything he wants. Every casino game he wins, like any beautiful woman he wants. And eventually it drives him insane. He wants out. He doesn't want to be there anymore because there's no risk. There's no nothing. He's literally wanting out, being tortured by boredom, by getting everything he wants. So it makes you wonder if that's why one of the reasons why we play this game in a way. We come back to this life and have amnesia.
Yes. Well, in my book, I talk about that, actually. I talk about everything. But anyway, one of the things that I talk about is that, can you imagine if you were a beautiful, the source, if you were a god or a whatever word you want to call it, and had infinite intelligence and filled with love, but nothing there, nothing around you. The only thing you can do is to create, and you create and you create and you create because that gives you such joy and such love. I think we are, because the people that I read and studied, they talked about how creation is like a flower that just never stops blooming. It just blooms and blooms and blooms and blooms. And so there's all these petals that keep coming out from the middle, and it just never stops. It grows and grows and grows. And what is creating, what the power is to create with, is love. And that's the love that and so we are love power. We are created through love power. That's our base.
The power of creation is fueled by this intimate love, this everlasting love.
Yes.
It seems life. It seems life finds a way, and not to quote Jurassic Park, but life is sprouting in all different kinds of ways. That there is. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I look at this divine force that kind of pushes through everything, makes life happen. There is some kind of force or will. And I don't picture a god that sits on a throne in the clouds. I picture more of a force.
Yeah, exactly. It actually, when people see the light, and they talk a lot about this light, the light is the power. That's the source. That's the energy, like you say, the positive energy force is what I call it. That is creative, and it's a consciousness. It's an intelligence.
Yeah, and like I said, from my earliest ponderings of this idea of what consciousness is, like I said, to me the biggest clue is people with multiple personality syndromes. How the consciousness likes to, when it's the inputs have been shut off or the inputs are really bad, being tortured or abused, people's personalities split into multiple personalities. They don't want to be alone. And they're suffering.
Yeah. Personal. I've got a list of them in the book. You haven't gotten to it yet, but you will.
Yeah, I will.
And what that list talks about is look at the power of our consciousness and that we are able to do this. Like the multiple personality.
Yeah. The other thing you when you talked about your vision of the universe, like coming from an atom to the planets and like expanding, is kind of the idea of the holographic universe. Like everything's a fractal, a smaller version of the bigger picture. Like you can find the same image broken down into a million pieces. The image is still there in a hologram.
That's right.
But to me that points to what maybe consciousness is. Because we are imitating. I think through creativity, when authors write a story or somebody creates a video game, we're always doing things to escape from this life into another life. Like, to me, it's a repeating pattern of what maybe the whole experience is.
Good analogy. I love it. That's great. Yeah.
I mean,
that's a good. Go ahead.
Well, a lot of people talk about the concept of a simulated universe. I don't believe we're in the Matrix, like we're plugged up to some machines.
No.
But I do see us in this kind of holographic universe, a universe that that's unfolding like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating. And so I say, well, if the universe is a hologram, what does that make us? What are we? And we're obviously not holograms. There's something more, and that's the soul, the spirit, the whatever you want to call it, the part that keeps going on.
But you made the connection early on. You had that vision that we're all part of the one. We're all connected. We're all part of this one. But that goes back to that idea of the hologram. If you break up a hologram, the image is in all the little pieces. That's what I wonder. How that connects.
Yeah, that's an excellent analogy. I like that.
Maybe that
explains it very well.
So maybe they're onto something when it comes to simulated universe. But like I said, I don't believe we're in some computer. But I feel like life is a simulation in a way that we're living out these stories and playing out these parts and learning these lessons. But it is all like an illusion. Maybe that's why people don't come back, because they get to the other side and they realize, I don't really care about that now. It was just a story.
Yeah, they actually get over on the other side and realize that this is like a paper. It's so weak. We think it's real. We touch things and we feel things and so on. But when you get to the other side, you think that wasn't real. There was one fellow. His name is Larry, and when he came back, his whole thing is, I watch TV and I know it's not real. And I see something in a book and I know it's not real. And he's right. So he gets waited by a waitress or something in a restaurant, and he knows it's not real. Like nothing is real for him. So it's what you're saying, is right.
Do you think that some of these people have to have support groups because of that experience? I mean,
yeah, actually, that's what IONS started. IONS, or is that IANDS? IANDS. That's it. And they began as a support group for people that had death experiences and didn't have anywhere to go.
Because I mean, it's such a traumatic experience, and something like you taste this bliss, especially for the ones who really had that blissful experience, which seems like a lot of them. To come back to reality has to hurt a little. It has to be a bit hard to go on with your day after experiencing something like that.
Yeah.
But it changes people for the better too. Like you said, but you got to wonder, like, it's got to be somewhat of a.
Well, the life review changes them, because then they realize that the only thing they get judged, well, not judged because they judge themselves, so they're not being judged.
Right.
But the only thing that matters is how they treat each other. That's it.
I think that, that's the best thing. The best advice I give my kids is just try to be kind. Everything you do, are you trying to be kind to someone else? Treat the golden rule, treat others as you wish to be treated,
Yes, exactly.
The world would be a lot better place if everybody tried to just be a little bit kinder to each other. I would say.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be different if we did that?
Yeah, right. I mean, if everybody, like I said earlier in the show, if everybody realized how connected we are, we're all one being in a way. Right. We wouldn't have wars, we wouldn't have the fights we do.
Yeah. That's right.
But then maybe that's why, but maybe that there's a purpose to that. Like I said, that's the entertainment of this life, is not knowing.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Lynn, you've been a wonderful guest. Definitely want everybody to check out your book, The Wonder of You, What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. Any information or websites you want to get out there, Lynn, before we go?
I'm building a website right as we speak, so it should be up in a week or week and a half. It will be soon. And just look up Lynn K. Russell. That's all. I'm there. Also, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn on their social site, and I'm on Twitter. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Lynn, I'm enjoying your book. I am going to finish it probably in the next day or so. Wish I could have finished it before the show, but sometimes I don't like to, because I don't want to get the end. I want to be a little surprised by the interview.
Sure.
But I am truly enjoying the book and the stories in it, and I would love to have you on again. But you've been a wonderful guest tonight.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And thank your audience for listening in and their questions. That was great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we had some great calls tonight, guys. Thanks to everybody who watched. Next Sunday is our 5-year anniversary show. I didn't realize it was coming up until a month or two ago. I do have a guest scheduled. I don't know if he's still coming on or not. If not, we'll do open lines, and we'll celebrate 5 years of Paranormal Soup. I cannot believe I'm saying 5 years of Paranormal Soup. I can't believe it's been 5 years, but 5 years it's been. And thank you to everybody who supported and watched the show all these years and keep coming back. I love you guys. Thanks to everyone who shares the show. Thank you to all the people who support us on Patreon. Your $2 a month definitely helps pay the bills. You can help pay the bills for us if you want. Go to Patreon. Look up Jason Bland Paranormal Soup. You'll find it there. Help us out. But sharing the show is the best way to help. So everybody who shares the show out on Facebook, shares the YouTube links, thank you so much. Let people know there's a forum where everybody can get together, open minds, open discussion, Paranormal Soup, discussing everything weird that is. All right, guys, see you next Sunday for our 5-year anniversary show. Have a great night. See you next week.